Would everyone please sit down, and we need silence as well. Silence your cell phones if you have any of those. It's time to start the meeting of July 14th of the City Council, beginning with the Pledge of Allegiance. Please rise. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. May I please have roll call?
Jerry DiTullio. Tim Fitzgerald.
Here.
Bud Starker.
Present.
George Pond.
Present.
Zachary Urban.
Present.
Tracy Langworthy. Here. Christy Davis.
Here.
Genevieve Wooden.
Present.
We have a quorum.
Thank you. Are there any changes to our meeting minutes from June 23rd? Ms. Wooden?
These are just minor typos on page 4. Under motion, it says to approve twice, and on page 5, the same thing under motion, it says to approve twice.
It was very approved.
4 and what was the other one?
4 and 5.
Very astute.
In motion 5 on 5.
Thank you. Any other changes? Mr. DiTullio?
I move to approve the minutes of June 23rd, 2014 with the suggested changes.
Second.
Second, we have a second from Mr. Pond. Okay. And Mr. Starker, they both tied there. I don't believe we have any proclamations or ceremonies tonight. Oh, we need to vote on the minutes? It's such an unneeded. Please do vote on the minutes.
Oh, okay. All right. Now vote. Oh, gosh. Motion carries 8-0.
Thank you. I do not believe we have any proclamations or ceremonies. Is that incorrect? Correct. Okay. Are we going to move to citizens' right to speak? And judging from the few of you out there, we have some. So I want to remind you that at this portion of the meeting, you'll all get a chance to speak. But at this point of the meeting, these are for items that are not on the agenda. We have 2 items on the agenda that would entertain that, which is dwarf goats and 38th Avenue. So if you're not here to discuss those items, please come forward with your desire to speak.
And also, Madam Mayor, could we add that if you come up to speak, make sure you have signed the sign-up sheet so we can get your name in the minutes.
I will. There is a sign-up sheet, and our city clerk is asking that you sign up so she have accurate records. And our first speaker, please. And would you please give your name and address, spelling your last name?
Good evening. My name is Paul Balaguer. It's spelled Balaguer. I live at 4373 Peach Court in Boulder. I'm here tonight speaking on behalf of Wheat Ridge 2020. I was hired by Wheat Ridge 2020 to assist them in conducting a bicycle race, the Ridge at 38 Criterium, that was recently done on June 22nd. I have extensive experience putting on cycling events specifically. I directed Ride the Rockies for 22 years, starting with its inception in 1986. I've assisted as the City of Boulder's lead hosting the U.S. Pro Challenge. Our race was, as I said, Sunday, the 22nd of June. It was an outstanding success for the first year. We've received some stellar reviews from racers, from the spectators, from the officials that were present, who work races most every weekend, so they've seen races in other parts of the state. We had great attendance. We were in fact told by the Bicycle Racing Association of Colorado that we had the best attendance of any bicycle race so far this year, so we were extremely pleased. This year we had a bronze designation in the season-long Cup Series, which is a season-long competition. The president of the Bicycle Racing Association of Colorado was present and extremely pleased with the event, and he told us he'd like us to be a gold designation for next year's Cup. So we also had some sponsors very pleased. Wheat Ridge Cyclery was our title sponsor, and I was told that they had their highest sales Sunday of the year so far on race day, so they were very pleased as well. I did want to take a minute to acknowledge the support of the City of Wheat Ridge and some of the city staff who worked with us on the event. As I said, I directed Ride the Rockies for 22 years. During that time, I worked with over 100 jurisdictions, municipalities, county governments, the state government, and it's fair to say that in this circumstance, Wheat Ridge, the city government and the city officials were really second to none. I'd like to specifically acknowledge some of the departments and the individuals. The police department, whose efforts were headed by Wade Hammond, did an outstanding job, provided excellent support. The fire department was an enormous asset. They provided emergency medical support. That was headed up by Bob Dowling. Public Works, we had a little problem on Friday afternoon with an area of the road that had some unscheduled and unpermitted work done on it. They put a steel plate right in the middle of one of our corners. And Public Works came out on Friday afternoon, ripped out that plate, filled the hole, paved it over, didn't have a single complaint about that. We're grateful also to the engineering department and Steve Wynn for his efforts. So I do also want to say that I'm very grateful to Wheat Ridge 2020 for the opportunity to take part in this event, creating the event. Mara Owen is here tonight. She did an outstanding job working with me on the event, as did Britta Fisher and Kim Snetzinger. And last, just want to say that Wheat Ridge 2020 and myself are very much looking forward to working with the city and continuing the outstanding partnership we had putting on that event. So again, thank you very much.
Thank you, Paul. That was nice to hear.
Thank you.
Now, if we have additional citizens wishing to speak on non-agenda items, please come forward.
Vivian Voss, that's V as in Victor, O, S as in Sam, 6920 West 47th Place. I'd like to ask several questions, and it starts off with the treasurer's report, or lack of. I've been coming to meetings since December, so there was a year-end possibility for treasurer's report. I never saw it. It's past the half of the following year. And I'm not seeing a treasurer's report. I've looked at the back of the room, and there's never been one. There's never been one entered into the minutes of City Council. And I'm not finding one on the website either. So I'm questioning why that is missing. I did find the comprehensive annual report. It is from 2012. We are a year and a half past 2012, so I'm wondering why 2013 is not there. And then I would also like to see, and maybe it's in the annual report, comprehensive, maybe it's in the treasurer's report, city investments. And is the city still retaining their AA rating on the investments that they are doing? I would like to see somewhere the Urban Renewal Authority financials. I'm not even sure. I think I saw 3 on the website that we have, but in those website pages, there wasn't anything speaking to financials. And as we get to subjects being thrown around about TIFs and PIFs in the city, I'm wondering if the city is set up for those, and also those financials should be showing on any existing urban renewal authorities. So I'm wondering if that's an accounting that the city is even undertaking now. Thank you very much.
Thank you. We can either answer that or discuss that at a later. That would be your choice.
Yeah, I can talk to Vivian after the meeting.
That'll be fine. And our next speaker, please.
Thomas Lundy, I live at 3500 Allison Street. I'm coming here to express my concern and the concern of many other people about the notion that the redevelopment of the property at 38th and Wadsworth might include a Walmart. This has been kind of hinted at a couple of the preliminary meetings. I think that, well, there's nothing more notorious than Walmart's destructive business practices and its habit of destroying city resources. I think it's a tremendously bad fit for Wheat Ridge. I question the need for knuckling under to Walmart at this point. I know the property has stood pretty much unclaimed and undeveloped since 2008, depending on how you count the end of the development project that was associated with John Elway when it started. But the sort of development that has been shown is, well, it conforms to an obsolete model. It's a sort of center you'd expect to have been put up in the mid-90s. It doesn't incorporate any of the innovative design that's been going on all over the place. Notable examples, Stapleton and Sloan's Lake. As I said, it's sort of an obsolete model with an anchor and then some scattered housing, and then when the proposal I saw wasn't even complete. In terms of a response, there are several citizens groups organizing to oppose any attempt to insert a Walmart into that property. There are sites going around, there are signs around, there are Facebook pages that you can see, they're very easy to find. And also, I'd urge citizens to try to take a positive approach to this, to maybe let the owners know that this sort of development that they've actually been kind of committing to slightly isn't necessary and isn't warranted. And I would say that one really good resource that I found is the UCD School of Design and Architecture, which has been enlarged greatly over the past few years. Been talking to them, they've been very cooperative. Hopefully, we can come to a positive win-win solution and not have a Walmart. Thank you.
Thank you. We usually prefer not to have acknowledgements, clapping or hurrahing during public speaking, but if you don't mind. Our next speaker, please.
Hi, Janice Hoppe, Hoppe. I just wanted to remind everybody that we have a cruiser crawl on Thursday, starting in front of Wheat Ridge Cyclery at 6:30, and free yoga in the park on Saturday at 9:30. Thanks.
And one more. Thank you, Janice.
Dorothy Archer, 3640 Marshall Street. Mayor Jay, council, and staff. I'd like to reiterate a little bit the gentleman that spoke about Walmart. My concern is you are trying to address small businesses to come into Wheat Ridge. I think having the word Walmart is not encouraging at all. We have Sprouts, who's coming on 38th and Kipling. We have open markets all summer long. We have another corporate who's taking over our Safeway store. I don't see where any incentive with Walmart is going to do us any good. Surely there's other anchors out there other than a $45 billion business coming into Wheat Ridge. I'm very, very concerned. Yes, I support 38th. I support Wheat Ridge. I'm very concerned about the money that is being spent for 38th. Until we have that money, maybe we ought to wait until all this sales tax comes in for all of these businesses that are coming to us. I'm concerned that you stop on Marshall Street. I don't know if that's addressing all of the new development. Please don't leave us out from Marshall to Harlan. Do we have to wait 10 years till somebody takes care of those 4 streets? Have we addressed buying the lamps from Public Service on 38th? If we could do that, we could decorate them ourselves. You don't need planters. You could hang them from the lamps. So I think we really need to see about Public Service letting us buy those lamps, those street lamps. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other speakers? We can put that on a study session. Would that be a possibility? Would that do for you? All right, thank you. All right. If there's no more speakers that wish to speak in regard to items that are not agenda items, we're going to go ahead with the meeting, and then you will all have an opportunity to speak in response to those specific items. And our first item on tonight's agenda, let's ask, we have to approve the agenda. Are there any changes to tonight's agenda? Anyone? Okay, seeing none, we'll move forward. We're starting out with Council Bill number 08-2014. Ms. Langworthy.
Thank you, Mayor. Council Bill number 08-2014, an ordinance amending the Wheat Ridge Code of Laws concerning the keeping of dwarf goats. at issue. Some homeowners in the city have recently raised questions about the permissibility of dwarf goats on residential properties in the city. The city's large animal regulation, section 26-605, currently regulates full-size goats, but no distinction is made for dwarf goats, which are considerably smaller. The city's small animal regulation, section 26-606, reference rabbits, chinchillas, and various fowl and poultry, but nothing similar to a goat. Based on the above described small and large animal code sections, it has been determined that dwarf goats are most similar to goats and therefore subject to the city's large animal regulations. The property in question is not of sufficient size to meet the threshold of the 9,000 square foot of open lot area as is required to keep any large animals. This determination has caused the property owner to request the city consider code amendments to allow the keeping of dwarf goats in more circumstances than are allowed under current large animal regulations.
Okay, thanks. Oh, thank you. I need an ordinance number on this one?
Madam Mayor, we need to open the public hearing.
I will. May I have an ordinance number?
I think you should open the public hearing first before.
It does not have to go in that order. It can be the number first and then the
Okay.
public hearing or vice
This
versa.
is ordinance number 1552.
1552. Thank you. Now I'm opening the public hearing, and will there be someone speaking, staff or public, discussing dwarf goats? Do I have someone speaking on it, either city staff? We do have city staff, Ken Johnston. And is there anybody in the public who will be speaking in regard to goats? I have a name here. There is a hand up. Would you both stand so I can swear you in? Raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm to tell the whole truth as you understand it? Just say I do. Thank you. And we'll start with the staff report. Mr. Johnston?
Thank you, Mayor. I'll be brief. Thanks for the introduction from Ms. Langworthy. She captured kind of the essence of the issue. The permissibility of dwarf goats on residential lots has just come up for the community, to my knowledge at least, in the last several months, raised specifically by some homeowners desiring to have goats on their properties. Dwarf goats, as Ms. Langworthy noted, are significantly smaller, on the order of half or less the size of full-size goats. But our code is currently silent to them. So we've made the determination that under existing regulations that the most similar thing that we can point to in the code is regular-sized goats, and those are regulated under our large animal regulations, which is kind of the crux of the problem or the issue that's come up. A couple of the common breeds that people speak of are African pygmy and Nigerian dwarf, and we've proposed to cross-reference those by way of example, at least in the ordinance. And I just note that, it seems like this is an increasingly popular trend that whether it be for dairy purposes or simply as kind of a household pet, that this is becoming increasingly common as part of an accessory use to a residential use of property. So we do think it is appropriate to tackle the issue. As I noted, currently regulated as large animals. As such, you need to have what I'd say is a fairly large lot, probably a lot size that's certainly less than half of the lots in the city. It has to have a minimum lot area of 9,000 square feet of open lot area. So the lot size itself probably has to be more in the order of 12 or 13, or more than a quarter of an acre, in order to have them under the large animal regulations. So the policy question becomes, do we want to be more permissive? Do we want to allow dwarf goats as a species on smaller residential lots? We took that topic to the Animal Welfare and Control Commission as well as City Council several months ago at a study session, and the general notion was yes. The Animal Welfare Control Commission passed a motion to that effect, and Council provided informal preliminary direction at a study session. So we've drafted a proposed ordinance that takes that approach of being more permissive. It does require amendments to both our large animal regulations as well as adding a section to our small animal regulations to allow for dwarf goats as well. We're trying to be as minimalistic as possible, trying to rely on our existing large and small animal regulations, which we think are generally working fairly well, but just add a few references to dwarf goats and a few definitions to accommodate them within those two sections of the code. Some of the specific provisions that we're proposing, just in terms of the substance of the ordinance, on the smaller residential lots, you'd be allowed to have up to 3. They'd be treated as another species of small animals, but they would be limited in number, whereas other small animals such as chickens are not limited number. The rationale for that is, they are a larger animal than a chicken. They're really very similar in size to a dog, and dogs are allowed to have a maximum of 3 under our existing residential zoning regulations, so that was the rationale for that. In terms of any structures that would be associated, dwarf goats, as I understand it, maybe all goats, I don't know that, require shelter. They don't like being exposed to moisture in the form of rain and presumably snow, so that's an important component of having dwarf goats. So those structures would need to be set back in the same manner that other structures are already regulated under the small animal regulations. So 15 feet from property lines and 30 feet from adjacent residences. So if from your neighbor's master bedroom, so to speak, you need to be 30 feet separate from that. We would not propose to allow the unneutered male goats, based in large part on the potential for odor being more prevalent from them. And then in terms of large animal regulations, we're defining a new horse equivalent unit, which is how we regulate different breeds of large animals. With the horse as a large animal being kind of the benchmark, we're suggesting that you'd have a horse equivalent unit of 6 for the dwarf goats relative to one horse. So that's really the crux of what we're proposing to do in terms of permitting them. We did take these recommendations in this ordinance to the Planning Commission for a public hearing. These amendments are all contained in Chapter 26, so a recommendation is required from the Planning Commission. They are forwarding a recommendation of approval. They held a hearing on June 19th and are not proposing any amendments to the ordinance. It was taken and recommended for approval as presented. And those are my comments. Glad to answer questions.
Before I take public comment, is there any questions of the council of staff? Okay, we did have someone who wished to speak.
Thank you. My name is Sundari Kraft. I live at 3495 Ames Street.
And could you spell your last name?
Kraft.
Thank you.
And I apologize for not getting these to you ahead of time, but I just wanted to pass out a letter from Denver City Councilwoman Susan Shepard, who wanted to express her support for the idea of dwarf goats in Wheat Ridge based on how well the dwarf goat ordinance in Denver has worked since we passed it there in 2011. I'll be very brief tonight. I'm the only one speaking about this evening. It wasn't until very recently that I knew what the agenda for tonight would look like, and I knew that there was something very large also on the agenda, and I didn't necessarily want to bring a bunch of goat people to come and talk with you when they might be here really late. And also, we've had, I think, a really wonderful ongoing conversation with all of you in the form of emails and phone calls that I know people have been sending to you and contacting you over the past few weeks. So I just wanted to say that I think that as someone who moved here from Denver, where we had a dwarf goat ordinance in place, and seeing what's happened here in Wheat Ridge, that there's been excellent work by city staff, really excellent work done on this ordinance. As you know, it has gone through Animal Commission and Planning Commission and been discussed really thoroughly. I feel that this is a great fit for Wheat Ridge in what I'm getting the sense of in our community. And as somebody who is an urban homesteading teacher and advocate, I can say that this ordinance does adequately and reasonably meet the needs of the urban homesteading community in regards to the keeping of dwarf dairy goats and providing homeowners with the opportunity to raise a sustainable, affordable, healthy source of dairy in their backyard to go along with their chickens who provide the eggs and the bees who provide the honey. So I don't have any additional comment other than that. I know we've all discussed this. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them. But other than that, thank you all for being so open to hearing from your community on this issue. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Sunday. Just a moment, let's see if there's any questions from council no? Okay, thank you very much.
Thanks for your patience, everybody.
Okay, let's have a motion then and a second so that we can take a vote. Thank you.
I move to approve Council Bill number 08-2014, an ordinance amending the Wheat Ridge Code of Laws concerning the keeping of dwarf goats. Was I supposed to wait?
I need to close the public
Okay.
hearing. Public hearing is closed.
Thank you. I move to approve Council Bill number 08-2014, an ordinance amending the Wheat Ridge Code of Laws concerning the keeping of dwarf goats and that it take effect 15 days after final publication.
Second.
Any discussion on the motion? Oh, yes?
I don't have a question because I think that this is a really great thing, and all the emails that we have received a lot of emails regarding this. And what I'm hearing in the community also is Wheat Ridge is kind of getting back to its agricultural roots, and people are coming to our community because of things like this. So it's a really great way to sustain a part of our history by introducing it to new generations. So, thank you.
Thank you. I think we can poll the council.
Motion carries 8-0.
Thank you. Let's move on to item number 2. Can we please have silence? Item number 2, Ms. Davis. You do it, and they'll ask for it.
Thank you. Resolution number 39-2014, a resolution establishing a street width for 38th Avenue from Upham Street to Marshall Street in accordance with Phase 2 design plans prepared by IntelliKey and accepted by the City Council on June 16th, 2014. I'm guessing is there going to be a staff presentation? So I'll just read the issue and let the staff probably present a lot better than I can read. Issue, city staff is preparing for the next step in the implementation of the 38th Avenue Corridor Plan as directed by City Council at the June 16, 2014 study session. As part of the implementation process, a street width designation is required in accordance with the provisions of the city charter.
This is an ordinance, not a resolution, so there's no ordinance number, but I'm going to open the public meeting. And we will start with staff presentation. There's so many of you, I guess we can do a group swearing in. Why don't I do the staff presentation, and then I'll swear you all in as a group that wish to participate in the discussion.
Madam Mayor, it's actually, under the charter, it's a public hearing.
Okay.
Even though it's a resolution, it's a public hearing because of the charter requirement. So you're right to swear all the speakers in.
So you have to swear.
I would do a mass swearing in.
I have to swear the staff in as well.
Yeah, that's fine, yeah.
Yes.
So we can just do a mass swearing in.
So, do you recommend that we do a massive swearing
Sure,
in?
let's get it done.
All right,
at once.
everyone,
Everybody stand
up on your feet. If you intend to speak to this particular item, please stand for a group swear-in. We might get a historical number here. All right. I'm going to ask the question, and then you will answer, I do. Do you swear to affirm to tell the whole truth as you understand it? Thank you very much.
And we're just going to confirm for the record, Madam Mayor, that you opened a public hearing, not a meeting, public hearing.
I did it.
Okay, all right.
I opened it.
I thought I heard meeting.
Oh,
Was it
I
meeting
didn't
or
say
hearing?
public hearing.
Okay.
This is
Thanks.
a public hearing.
Magic words, thanks.
Thank you, Mayor Jay, members of the council. Here tonight to talk about 38th Avenue. What I'm going to do tonight is just give a real brief presentation of where we've been, kind of a little bit of the background of the history, which I know everybody's familiar with, but I'll just recap that real quick. Talk about some of the considerations and actions this evening that are in front of you. Number one is the street width designation is in front of you tonight. We'll talk a little bit more about the process and what's involved with that. Also to initiate an RFQ, which means request for quotations from professional services in the event council does decide to go ahead with the project further tonight. That's another separate item on the agenda, but it would be to get a design consultant on board to start actually going into survey work and actual design of the project. And we'll talk a little bit about the process and schedule and other options for consideration to this evening. Going over the history a little bit here, just going back to October of 2011, a little over a couple years ago, the corridor plan was adopted. There was actually quite a process history that even came before reaching that point, but starting back in October of 2011, April 2012, the pilot project was approved. The pilot project being the reconfiguration of 38th Avenue from a 4-lane section down to 3 lanes. March of 2013 and subsequently that summer, we purchased the banner poles, one on the west end of the project, one on the east end. July of 2013, authorization was given to Entelechy, our consultant, to start working on a preliminary conceptual design for the project. As part of that, there was a public process involved with stakeholders, members of the community, when going through the conceptual design, kind of working out what was important to the community, the sidewalks, the streetscapes, discussion of bicycles, all of that. December of 2013, council accepted the preliminary conceptual design, the phase 1 that was put together by Entelechy, and then subsequently in February of 2014, moved into a phase 2 where that phase 1 design was actually refined and worked a little further to become more specific with lane widths and width of the street and so forth, which brings us closer to tonight. On the 14th of May, a public informational meeting was held, open house, and on June 16th, just a month ago, the last time this was in front of the council, we talked about the phase 2 conceptual design, and I'll talk a little bit about what was discussed on the 16th, but at that time, council authorized staff to move ahead and bring this forward tonight for further consideration. Just a graphic of what I just discussed, going from a year ago up until now, excuse me, talks a little bit about the process of the phase 1 and the phase 2 design. Gets into a little more with the public process, how there was block-to-block outreach, a couple of public open houses, meetings with the leadership committee and Wheat Ridge 2020, some of the other groups out there, and there were also quite a few meetings just one-on-one with individual property owners. Back on the 16th, we talked about the public process, the history, how we got here. We talked a little bit about the extended geographical area, which council requested back in January when we started the phase 2. In other words, extending the project from Pierce Street further east to Marshall Street. We reviewed the streetscape elements and design components a little further. Those are the things like the planters, the benches, crosswalks, bicycle parking, and all the amenities. We talked about estimated construction costs, an overview of the north side of 38th between Upham Street and High Court. That's the green area kind of in front of the school there and across the street from Wheat Ridge Cyclery. And we also discussed further the actual cross-section, street and lane widths prior to engaging in final design, which brings us to tonight. As we went through the public process, sidewalks and amenity zones were considered the highest priority as we went through the public process. Also, as we went through this, we tried to avoid additional right-of-way or property acquisition as much as we could, not only because there's can be a significant additional cost to that, but we did not want to impact as much as we could help at the existing businesses and their properties. So there was concerted effort to stay within the right-of-way as much as we could. That said, if we do go into construction, we know that there will need to be temporary easements, slope easements, meaning the construction does go into private property a little bit to get driveways to match in with the street, perhaps getting into parking lots and fixing, repaving those, working on the access issues. So we do know that there would be at least some temporary work on private property. Street width, the element dimensions we came up with was 10-foot travel lanes. This is as narrow as we can really go on a street. Industry standard over the past several years has been closer to 12 feet, which you typically see on freeways and major highways, but over the years, the standards have been relaxed, down to 11 feet, even 10 feet in some cases, which we think is appropriate here. And part of that was just to maximize as much space as we could beyond the curbs for the streetscape and the sidewalks. Center turn lane, 11 feet, 6-foot parking lanes, which we also throw in 2 feet for the curb and gutter, the gutter section of the curb and gutter, and an 8-foot sidewalk being proposed. Just a few graphics to go over here to show a cross-section here. The top one, the 63-foot right-of-way, is what we would see in areas of the project, more on the east end where we don't have the space or the need for the on-street parking. Again, you can see the 10-foot travel lengths and the 11-foot center turn lane, the 6-foot amenity zone, and the 8-foot sidewalk. The bottom graphic, the 75-foot right-of-way, is more on the eastern end of the project, kind of between High Court, up on that area where we do have on-street parking. The only difference from the top one is that we allow that extra 6 feet for parking in there. So that's kind of a general sense cross-section of what's being proposed here. And again, an overhead view, kind of the same thing, but more just looking straight down from the top rather than that cross-section view. The 60-foot right-of-way, you can see the travel lanes, no parking, the center turn lane. The amenity zones colored in yellow there, crosswalk treatments, the orange colors you can see there. As I go on to the 70-foot right-of-way, pretty much the same thing other than the extra room for the parking there. And you can see at the crosswalks there, there's a bulb out there which provides an extra space for seating, gathering areas, and also narrows the street up some so the pedestrians have less width of street to get across, which helps safety as well. Some three-dimensional views here. These were prepared by our consultant Intelliky. Again, looking east at Upham with the on-street parking, you can see the on-street amenity zones, the bulb outs, the sidewalks. Looking the other direction, looking west near Teller, same thing, it kind of gives you a little feel for what it might look like out there. More of a street level view looking west near Teller, shows the sidewalk, the amenity zones, gathering areas. Similar view looking west at High Court. Orient people, this is at the corner of Right Coast Pizza, kind of on the other side of the intersection there, Wheat Ridge Cyclery being on the near side. As we move further east near Reed, this is looking east. An overhead view at Pierce, looking further east down toward Marshall, Newland. And more of a street view at Pierce there. So just kind of give you, a feel of what this could look like. And west at Newland. So tonight in front of you here is the public hearing, which we're engaged in now to consider the street width designation. This is being done in accordance with the city charter, and I'll get into specifics on that a little more in the next slide or two here. I'm going to just talk real briefly about metrics. That's some of the traffic and economic data we've collected over the last couple of years. Again, the other item on the agenda concurrently is consideration of a scope of work for RFQ, request for qualifications for moving ahead with design. And along with that would be a supplemental budget appropriation to allow that to happen. If the council does elect or decide to go ahead with the street width designation tonight, we could come back on October 13th and authorize a design contract to a qualified consultant for services. Prior to that, we will have gone through a solicitation process, interviews and so forth, and we would hope to have a consultant named by that date. And shortly thereafter, November to April, we would have the consultant on board to start to work on the final design and put construction plans together. May 15th would be to open bids, and June or July 2015 we'd commence construction. This is a very aggressive schedule, and part of it is because of the city charter, which requires that once the council designates the street width, we have a year to start construction, which would mean giving a contractor a notice to proceed. How the street width designation is figured, it's measured from face of curb to face of curb, the flow line. The existing and proposed widths vary. Generally right now the street is curb to curb anyway, about 50 feet in width, maybe a little more in some places. And overall with this project we'd be narrowing the street. The narrowing would vary depending on the cross section and the parking, but anywhere from about 35 feet to 47 feet, I believe, give or take a foot. But overall, the street would be narrowing. And again, through the public hearing process tonight and subsequent council action, if you decide to go ahead, we would need to start construction within 1 year. And process and procedures being followed per the city charter. I'll just talk about metrics real briefly, and if there's more detailed questions as we get into discussion here, I can bring up some of the charts and tables. But overall, over the last couple of years, when the roadway configuration was first put in place, we've been getting traffic counts, volume counts every 6 months. And from the data we've put together, we haven't been able to see any discernible or consistent trend as a result of the roadway configuration. We did do counts in different sections of the road. Some are up a real small percentage, some are down a small percentage. We also looked at other streets in the area to see how those have been impacted, like 32nd Avenue, 44th Avenue, other parallel routes that people may be diverting to or diverting from, whatever the case may be. And we found the same thing, that the data was pretty inconsistent, that the percentages both increase and decrease depending on the section were small. At least we didn't see enough verifiable data that any changes or any bumps and dips we did see can be attributed solely to 38th. And part of that is there's so many other things going on in the area. Denver Water has the Ashland Reservoir project going on. You know, we've got the 29th Street drainage project going on. We've had that closed occasionally, so we don't know what kind of effect that may have on the counts. New Walmart store over on 44th and Sheridan there probably has an impact to some degree at least. And even Wadsworth Boulevard, when traffic backs up and queues on that, we know some people divert over to Pierce and try and get around that. So again, based on the data, it was really hard to come up with something verifiable that we could really attribute to 38th Avenue itself. We also did some bicycle and pedestrian counts, kind of similar. We did see some similar in that it was hard to see any trends, but down at Harlan and 38th, we did see a little bump up in the pedestrian activity, but we think that might be at least some to the new 7-Eleven store that opened there. Weekday bicycle and ped traffic over in the area of High Court did bump up a little bit, but again, we're still kind of in the data collection mode and trying to get a good feel for what kind of trends we're seeing happening out there. In economic data, Steve Art, our economic development director, did put some data together. Sales tax revenues have increased steadily since 2011 in the 38th Avenue corridor, and we can talk about more of that specifically in the discussion part if needed. Again, laying out a tentative schedule here, assuming we move forward tonight, kind of repeating what I just went over, that November to April of next year we'd be putting design construction plans together and hopefully starting construction in June or July or next year. As we go through a design and putting construction plans together, there's a lot of a lot of work that goes into that, a lot of extra things that need to be considered. One is underground utilities. We know Excel and the telephone companies, CenturyLink and so forth, have underground facilities there, so we'd have to figure out how to work around that, especially with our storm sewer. We have existing storm sewer out there. We'd have to evaluate, can we use that, or does it have to be moved or rebuilt depending on the condition or possible conflicts with the other utilities. So that would need to be looked at. We know there'd be we'd have to continue with the public process through design here too, because the property owners out there, the businesses, will have a lot of questions and concerns during construction. You know, how are people going to get to the businesses? There's, you know, how does the traffic get down 38th? How do pedestrians get to, you know, the front doors of these businesses if we're rebuilding the sidewalks and the streetscape? So that's something we'll have to work through closely with the consultant and with the property owners as well. And along with that would be phasing of the work. You know, we're talking about Upham Street to Marshall, but it wouldn't necessarily have to be done all at once. We'd probably look at constructing in phases just from the standpoint of being able to, you know, work around the traffic and get traffic either through there or detoured if it came to that. But the intent with the businesses there would be to you know, keep the street open as much as we could. You have some considerations for you tonight to move ahead with the street width designation and the RFQ for consulting services. I'll end it there, and for discussion, any questions you might have. Thank you.
If the council wishes, we can ask staff, Scott, regarding questions right now. He'll also be available when we have our discussion later after the vote, okay? Is there any questions of staff at this time?
I do.
Mr. Urban?
In your presentation, you indicated that the city council has accepted phase 1 and phase 2 of the design plans. Is that?
Correct.
When did we do that?
In June.
That was at a study. My concern is that's at a study session. That's not a formal acceptance of anything.
Okay.
I was going to say accepted in meaning
To move
asking
forward.
staff to move forward. Yeah.
It was a consensus to move forward, probably so we could get to this point.
Right. I guess it's concerning that the study sessions, there's no formal action to be taken, but yet we're indicating that something was accepted by the council at that point in time when it wasn't. So I think that would be my concern, is that we're indicating that it's been accepted when the council has not actually accepted either phase 1 or phase 2.
Patrick, you seem to have an answer for that.
Not probably any more than Scott mentioned, but in accepted, we mean there was consensus to give staff direction to move forward. That's the definition of accepted here.
Okay.
It was to move us further along so we could get to this point, so there's something more solid to accept as far as bringing it before the public.
Right, but in the resolution title, it's saying that we as the city council have accepted these plans, and there's been no vote to accept these plans heretofore.
I think we can use that as an exception then.
An exceptional?
An exception, meaning that there is an understanding of what you're saying, that we have not formally accepted these plans as we're attempting to do tonight. It was more of a go-ahead to keep moving versus a legal determination.
Are we accepting these plans tonight? Is that the case?
Tonight, the action is to designate a street width. So that essentially you will be accepting the final street width, which is incorporated into the design.
So why would we be accepting a street width designation prior to accepting the design that sets that street width designation? Wouldn't we accept the design prior to then setting the street width designation?
That's not an action that is in front of council. We've received consensus numerous times to move forward, continue moving the project forward. The next step that needs authorization from city council is street width.
Okay, I don't think that, based on what you're saying, it doesn't seem like we as a council have taken any official action on this, and yet we're going forward with the street width designation. I don't think I think that's putting the cart before the horse.
We did accept the design that Entelechy gave to us as far as we made a choice as to, there was two different, the kit of parts thing, and we decided which way we wanted to go. Remember, there was 3 choices or 2 choices. And I don't know that we made that a formal choice in a public meeting, via motion. I believe that was, do we need to do that?
That's correct, no, and that's up to you, and we were not given direction to bring that specific action to council for a formal decision. What is in front of you tonight is setting the street width designation.
Right, which we have to do it to move forward anyway.
Correct.
So if necessary, we could bring that forward as an acceptance of the general direction of design going forward.
Yeah, I would just be cautious about including language in the resolution that's indicating that this has been accepted by council when it hasn't.
I think the resolution will be
We
fine to
can,
the
we
street
can,
width.
Mr. Dahl has a suggestion for an amendment to the resolution. We can take out accepted and reviewed and add reviewed, if that would help Mr. Urban.
Would that be more comfortable?
Well, yeah. For right now, yeah.
Ms. Davis has a question?
So, I have just a quick question as far as when it comes to, when we start doing the work. And I know that there are, situations where we'll be going on to the properties, because we're gonna be changing the sidewalk, so we'll probably be doing some paving and that type of thing within, the property owner's property. Is it possible to work with the, whoever, receives the bid to allow the property owners possibly the opportunity to, like, say, do a slurry seal or an upgrade on their individual properties? Of course, this would not be at the expense of the city, but it might be an opportunity to say, okay, dear property owner, at this point, you can get this. If you're interested, please contact the company, and you could get this slurry seal for $700, I'm gonna just pretend, $750 versus $1,250 if you do it while they're doing the changes. Is there a way that we can work with that, so that we're working with the property owners to perhaps do some improvements as well within their lines, but also being able to get a good deal because the folks are already there?
Yeah, that's something we've done on other projects. I've seen it more on paving projects in residential areas where people want to, just repave their whole driveway, and the thought is just like you're saying, gee, the contractor happens to be there. They've given us unit prices to do a lot of this work for convenience and price. That might be the best thing, and we usually, normally the private owners themselves work that out individually with the contractor. And we encourage that, but at the same time, we'd always tell the property owners, do get quotes for this, because even though the contractor is there and has given us prices, that might not necessarily be the best deal for you, so, but we work with the property owners on that, yeah.
Okay.
Further questions? Okay, if there's no further questions regarding staff, then we're open for public input. And I would ask if there are people with small children that would like to speak first so they can take those children home. Could you please offer that to them? I thought I saw some, but no, I don't see any right now. Yeah, if there are any children or parents with children that would like to speak sooner than later, that would be great. Doesn't look like it.
My name is Herb Shilreff. I'm at 3900 Garrison Street.
And your last name, spell it for us, please?
SCHILLEREFF.
Now, did you sign up? Our clerk has asked if you can, please sign up. It helps her when she
I
does the
signed up.
Thank you very much.
We moved here in September of '63, built our home here, registered to vote in September of '63, and voted in the election at that time. I'm very much opposed to this. I don't believe you've taken it to the citizens. Again, here this evening, there's no discussion on the amount of cost. The homeowners paying taxes are going to end up paying for this thing. You're going up the taxes. You're going up the cost of taxes when you buy groceries or gasoline, whatever you do here. How are you paying for this? There's no word of that. It's a big secret. This is too much of a project for the council to take on. You should give it to the citizens and let us vote on it. If we want to become involved in this, this thing has been drawn out a long time. You're going to try and make a shopping center out of a through street. That's difficult to do. And also, I've heard rumors these beer gardens are good for about 10 years. They've already been here 5 years. So in 5 more years, you're going to lose possibly the taxes from that. What industries have you got signed up that want to move on 38th? You should have a backbone of support that you can rely on. You have a good bicycle shop there, the tire shop, a mechanic, the drugstore, but there's very few others. And they're not going to pay much taxes for that whole thing. And also, it's very disruptive. People who lived here, we're used to driving down 38th, not someone backing in front of you. I think you did not really observe and take suggestions from the people who live here as to your construction project. This is a wild thing. I think you're off, and you need more guidance on it. You should take it to the people and have a vote on it, and also bring up with the taxes what the cost is going to be. We homeowners are going to end up paying for this thing. We voted for the fire department, which was very good. We needed that here just last year. But this, I haven't spoke to anyone who needs it or is for it. And in your paper, you keep saying 60, 70% of the people are for it. You haven't talked to me. You haven't talked to anybody on Garrison Street. I've spoke to people on Garrison Street, and no one's for this darn thing. I don't know, where do you get your 60, 70% of people that's for it? Maybe I'm sure there's some that's for it, but I question that much. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to, since we have so many people, try to be considerate of the amount of time, and yet I do want you to express yourselves. And your name, sir? I mean, sir.
Janice Hoppe, Hoppe, 7000 West 35th Avenue. My husband and I own Compass Construction. We bought that building in 2010. In 2010, when you looked at 38th Avenue, there were more for lease and for sale signs than open for business signs. Since then, you've noticed that there's a lot of new businesses that are coming in. We chose to buy that building there rather than in Denver because we were given the information about the neighborhood revitalization study that was being done and because of what was going to be happening in the future in Wheat Ridge. Sorry, I had to move that. I was leaning over it. When we came here, there was no Right Coast Pizza, there was no Fran's Cafe, there was no Pilates, there was no C+. And people would say, back in the day, it used to be. It's such a shame. I mean, people don't say that anymore. People say, oh, I'm so excited, and I'm happy that you're here, and I'm happy that these other places are open, and I'm glad that I can go and get a nice pizza. I'm glad that I can go work that pizza off at the Pilates place, right? So such a shame is not at the end of everything that people say about 38th Avenue anymore. In 2011, we opened our building, we moved into it, and then in 2011, we moved our residents here to Wheat Ridge. So prior to that, though, I had moved all of our business to Wheat Ridge. All of our dry cleaning we did here. I did grocery shopping before I went home to Denver, and ever since then, we've been investing in our community. We always look local first. We always live local first. And I greatly appreciate all the effort and time that everybody has put into putting this project together. And I would really hope that you guys would still continue to move forward tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker.
Hi, my name is Jerry Nealon. I am a property owner. I'm a business owner on 38th Avenue. I also have rental properties in Wheat Ridge, so I'm not just from Lakewood. But anyway, I hear from a lot of people that other cities, the way they work, this is what we're going to do. This is how we're going to do it. You guys, I appreciate you take the time. You do listen to people. There's been plenty of time for input, and there's been plenty of information out there. So I think that's just awesome. So thank you, number one. But then you have now the unpleasant task because you can't please everybody. It's not going to be the best for person A, might benefit person B a little bit more. So now you've got to make a decision on where we go. And I think so far you've done a good job of doing what's best for the city of Wheat Ridge, the residents of Wheat Ridge. I know a lot of people have invested in businesses, existing businesses, new businesses coming in, residents moving into the city of Wheat Ridge based on the promises of what's going on 38th Avenue. I just want to, let's get the street designation done. Let's get it done and move forward. And I just want to say thank you very much.
Thank you.
My name is Adam Wiley, W-Y-L-I-E, at 9865 West 35th Avenue. I've been up here in the past talking about how happy my family is with our choice to move to Wheat Ridge because of the great things going on in the city and the sense of community that you can almost see growing. I've also spoken to you about my passion for further growing that community and wellness through improved active transportation options. I'm thrilled to have taken an active community role for the first time, and I did so because of the incredible positive energy shown by our neighbors in every form and setting, and just because it feels right now. You've seen a lot of data tonight and other times recently that supports these sentiments, like tax revenues, polling data, new and thriving businesses, increased property values with increased demand. You've seen all that data. I don't need to repeat it. I'll have just one data point for you. I was just reading about the transportation approaches of build it and they will come versus if they come, we will build it. A few years ago, the city made the courageous move to listen to the experts and build it. And the data is now proving that they've come and continue to pour in. You chose well, and 38th is the center of the community that you bet on. So we bought our home here knowing it needed some updating, but the price was right. Then the September storm came and the home decided it needed to settle a little bit more and more. With no options other than major work, I hesitated to pursue a home equity loan out of the fear that the home wasn't worth enough to get what we needed. We were sure to point out, when the appraiser came just last week, the great park across the street, the Mountain View, the Kipling multi-use trail under construction, the development at 38th and Kipling, the development on 38th, the ridge at 38th, and the very thorough appraiser proved to us that after only 1 year and 4 months and many cracked walls, my home value increased by 30%. That's my data point. So despite all the fear and worry about 38th Avenue, people in the Denver area are moving to Wheat Ridge with the intent to be in Wheat Ridge, not just because it's close to Denver. We can and should discuss the details, but the city has proven that 38th is worth the investment. Thanks.
Thank you. Our next speaker on this item.
Hello. Sundari Craft, K-R-A-F-T, 3495 Ames Street. As you know, we're new to Wheat Ridge. We just moved a mile here from Denver. We lived in Berkeley, the Northwest Denver neighborhood. So being in Northwest Denver, we were aware, of what was beginning to happen on 38th Avenue. And my husband is interested in real estate investing. We currently have 3 rental properties so far. So when we were looking at our potential home in Wheat Ridge, he started looking more into this 38th Avenue project, and it was very exciting to him. And it was part of the reason why we decided to invest in our home in Wheat Ridge, is because of the investment in the community that we saw happening in Wheat Ridge. And even though we're new to town, we're already enjoying 38th Avenue. We enjoy going to Wright Coast and spending time there as part of the Tuesday evening walks. And we really enjoy the feeling on that street. One of our favorite things about the Berkeley neighborhood in Northwest Denver was Tennyson. And of course, Wheat Ridge is Wheat Ridge, and we're going to have our own identity. But as a family who enjoys shopping locally and walking and having that real community feeling, it's so exciting to see that beginning to happen in Wheat Ridge the way that we saw it happening in Berkeley. And also just in driving, I personally enjoy going a little slower on 38th Avenue and getting a chance to see all the businesses and notice places I should stop and visit, as opposed to just kind of zooming through. Because to me, as an East Wheat Ridge resident, I consider that the heart of my community. And so, thank you.
Do we have someone else in opposition since we've had several? Mr. Slattery, do you want to come forward, please? I'd like to keep a little balance going.
Thomas Slattery, 6869 West 32nd Avenue. I think this is premature. You don't know how you're going to finance this thing. It's all based on if we build it, they will come. Your man just admitted they can't assess the traffic impact. Well, I can assess the traffic impact on my own street. It's up, and it's not caused by any other project than the narrowing of 38th Avenue. I think it was 2 or 3 months ago, a number of people came before this council specifically asking that you put this matter on the November ballot. There was a substantial number of people requesting this, and I think this is what you need to do. Everything is up in the air on this. How much is it going to cost? It was $5 million, now it's $10 million for 7 blocks. There are many other priorities in this city that are more important than this, that people in surveys have said are more important than this. So why don't we back the train up, start all over, and conduct this process properly? Decide what it's really going to cost. Will the taxpayers pay for it? Is it going to be a bond issue? Is it going to be a sales tax? Already you're jumping into fixing a street width, and there is just no clear indication of where the heck this project is going. So I say back up the, excuse me, my rubber plate is falling. Back up the train and do the thing right and get a clear consensus from the public. Now, the recent survey that went out, people approved improving 38th Avenue. The question did not address narrowing the street. And this is the crux of the whole thing. This is a thing you must have a consensus on. The only way to do that, put it on the ballot. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Christine Disney, D-I-S-N-E-Y. I live at 3940 Balsam Street. I have lived in Wheat Ridge for 20 years, and I was present when the City Council voted to go and adopt the 2004 neighborhood revitalization. I was living on Zephyr Street at that time and was trying to advocate for street bumps. So I remember when this all started. I have spent a lot of my discretionary income in other cities like Lakewood, Arvada, Denver, because there just wasn't anything here. So I was very excited when I saw that the City Council was going to try and improve 38th Avenue and create more of a main street to give Wheat Ridge more of an identity. In the past, when I told people I was from Wheat Ridge, they'd just kind of nod and go, mm-hmm, uh-huh. And now when I tell people I'm from Wheat Ridge, they're, oh yeah, Wheat Ridge is really progressive. They're doing a lot of really exciting things. And I know that a lot of the older citizens that are here are very concerned about the cost, as I am. I work in the building industry, and it's not cheap to build anything. And this isn't going to be an inexpensive project. But my concern is if we don't do anything, if nothing is done to create a more centralized area, add walkability, we're going to be left in the dust. And then you're really going to be concerned about your property values. Belmar, Old Town, 52nd and Kipling, the Highlands have all bloomed around us. They have all grown and gotten and attracted a lot of really exciting and interesting businesses. We have a few more, and the ones that have come here are great, but we could do so much better. And I think that the city and the city staff have done a very excellent job of trying to engage the citizenry and informing the people who live here just exactly what it's going to take. You can go to the excellent City of Wheat Ridge website and read the studies and read the metrics and understand. If you don't have that information, that's on you, because the city has done excellent work in communicating this to the people. So I want to ask that you please continue to move forward so that we do not get left behind. Thank you.
Thank you.
Chris Boardman, Boardman. I live at 3835 Kendall Street. I've owned my home there for about 12 years, and I just like to encourage you guys to go forward with this project. I think it's been a great improvement for the neighborhood and the community. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm Pat Muccelli, Mucilli. I own a building at 7172 West 38th, and also have been I've lived in Wheat Ridge since 1972, so been here for a couple years. First concern is the property that I own has a parking lot that's owned by you guys, or the city, not you guys, the city. You guys are having trouble taking care of that parking lot. I've got signs that are handicapped signs that say 2-hour parking, that are knocked over by drunks from Right Coast Pizza. Okay, they've been knocked over for 2 months. Today, finally, somebody came over to fix it. I got cones in that parking lot from the bicycle race that happened, okay? You guys should have had that stuff all cleaned up. How are you guys gonna take care of all these new sidewalks? Are you guys gonna pay for the shoveling? Are you guys gonna pay for the sweeping of them? Little things to consider, because, you know, as a property owner, I own quite a stretch there, and I really have trouble cleaning up the sidewalk that I already have, let alone adding the rest. Another concern I have is you guys are going to have a 6-foot parking zone, 10-foot lanes, driving right by my building there. What if somebody comes in there with a wider car, blocks up your 10-foot lane? It doesn't make any sense to me that you're going to do that. 6 foot is not enough. You know, there's other things that I've got here in my iPhone. I just typed up. Let's see. Your 6-foot problems. I'm sorry, guys. With that being said, I think you should move to postpone indefinitely Resolution 39, 2014 and submit a non-binding ballot question to the registered voters of the city in Districts 1 and 2 at the election. It really is the honest and right thing to do. Let people decide instead of just you guys. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Rachel Hultine. My last name is spelled Hultin, and I live at 4690 Balsam Street. And I'm here actually, well, first of all, my favorite thing on Monday nights to do is to walk by St. Andrew's Church, which is at 44th and Brentwood. And I mention that because on Monday nights the bagpipers play, and it's just such a special part of living in this community. And I will tell you right now, I'd much rather be walking over there than up here, but here we are. And I'm actually here to talk about the street width, because I am here to remind everybody that 38th Avenue, the street width has changed and changed and changed and changed. I don't know what its original street width was, and I'm not sure anybody does. But I do know that since it was the Middle Golden Road 100 years ago, it has changed as our community has changed. And we have revisited it time and time again to see how this street can reflect our community's needs. And if we had never changed 38th Avenue to change us, we would have a dirt road. And I am really grateful that this community has recognized that 38th Avenue is a road that needs to reflect where we are. I was thinking about this today, trying to find out why I'm here for the 11th time in a year to talk about 38th Avenue, which I'm grateful because to me that indicates that this has been a very engaged and public process. And it's not because I really personally have any outcome of whether or not 38th improves any more than it is now. Excuse me. But I realized I'm here tonight because I really care about this community, and I'm concerned that the 38th Avenue process is ripping at the fabric of the community that we feel 38th is meant to bring together. And I'm concerned that if 38th Avenue becomes a ballot question, it will further tear apart, turning neighbor against neighbor as we put signs in our yards indicating which side of this issue we're on. And I don't want that feeling. I'd rather walk by my neighbor's house and wave on my way to go listen to the bagpipers than realize that I'm on the different side of the issue from my neighbors. I've really enjoyed my experiences at 38th Avenue, and I've had conversation after conversation with people on both sides of it. And the conversations have stayed civil and engaged, and I've learned a lot from people who don't reflect my same views on it. And I'm afraid that if we don't handle this well and handle it on the dais, that we're going to be putting this community in a position where there is acrimony, and whatever 38th Avenue we end up with will stop reflecting the values that we're fighting so hard to keep. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker, please.
John Genova, 3430 Otis Street. So I believe it's important to move forward with this phase 2 design plan. As a resident, I'm grateful to have the opportunity to help shape the outcome of this design, and having attended nearly all of the public outreach meetings, I do remember distinctly voting for a lot of the design elements that we see today that are part of this phase 2 design. I'm an advocate of the 3-lane road design, and I do remember voting on that. That was something that I thought was an important element to help promote the environment for a walkable, vibrant downtown. That three-lane road design is integral to developing the type of public space that the vision for a vibrant Main Street that the Region 38 plan evokes. I think establishing a street width is, of course, an important step to implementing the plan, and I urge City Council to pass the resolution tonight in accordance with Phase 2 design plans.
Thank you, John.
Kathy Tolman at 4735 Reed Street, and I encourage you to put this to a vote of the people. This affects everybody, and they deserve to have a say. We deserve to have a say. Thank you.
Thank you, Kathy.
Hi, my name is Suzanne Kay, and last name is Kay at 7110 West 48th Avenue. And I don't really have a lot of different things to say than the majority of the people that have come up. I just know that my husband and I have been thrilled to see the renovations on 38th Avenue. When we moved here in 2008, I mean, we just thought it was really sad to go down 38th and see all the potential and, you know, ask our neighbors, why is there not a great coffee shop, or why, you know, and, oh, well, the coffee shops come in and then they go out of business, and then they come in and then they go out of business. And I think it's just because it was just not desirable to be there the way that the street was. And the change has really made a big difference. I love walking up to Right Coast with my kids and, you know, getting pizza, and just it has created such a community feel, and I think it's really important for the city of Wheat Ridge. And I personally don't know anybody that has said, hey, we don't want this to go forward. So I just wanted to let you know that I really support it.
Thank you. Can't find her.
Hi,
Hi, my name is Tiffany Barnhart, and I live at 3275 Quail Street. First of all, thank you for serving as leaders for our city. I know that you work very hard and that you put in long hours, and I'm truly grateful for what you do. I'm here to voice my support of traffic slowing measures at Wheat Ridge on 38th. I hope that in the future we're able to look back at this critical time and recognize true leadership. I want what is best for our city for the long term, something that provides opportunities to support Wheat Ridge as a place to live, to work, and to play. Moving forward with traffic slowing measures in support of the Ridge at 38th project is one I support, and it supports all of these things, as well as the desires of our community. A leader is defined as a person who guides or inspires others. I hope that you will look ahead 10 years and see what this could mean for all of us. Will you be known as a city council that succeeded in leading our community to be a better place? Or will you be the naysayer that tried to strike down this important community center despite the majority of residents who have voiced their support? Please, let's continue to move forward. Let's look ahead 10 years to the city we want to be, one with people enjoying this valuable amenity. Let's not look back in our rearview mirrors as we speed by what could have been. We want to be a community that is desirable long-term, not just another drive-through suburb. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have someone else in opposition? Thank you.
My name is Vicki Otteson. I live at 4210 Brentwood Street. I am not here actually in opposition. I am here as an undecided. I consider all of you my neighbors. I want to come down on the side tonight of the people who have asked for this to go to a vote, because I don't see anything the matter with my neighbor putting a sign in their yard, pro or against. That will have nothing to do with how I view that person.
Vicki.
I want that person to be able to also have input into how we spend our tax dollars.
Vicki, could you speak into the microphone and look at us?
I'm
please?
sorry.
Go, of course.
The problem that I do have, we're talking about a $10 million sidewalk. Before I moved to Wheat Ridge in 2005, I lived in Wash Park. The property values there are high. The property values in Wheat Ridge are already on the rebound from 2008. The change is coming to our community, whether we like it or not. The westward move out the downtown corridor all the way from 16th Avenue into Wheat Ridge is happening, whether we build a sidewalk or don't. The memory I have from Wash Park when my nephews were 1 and 3 was taking them to a restaurant, the Park Lane. It was a quintessential Wash Park restaurant. I walked down a crappy old sidewalk. I had to roll the stroller over bumps. It didn't keep me from walking. I sat there, looked out the window, taught them about a red truck, taught them how to use a fork, a spoon, a napkin. We did it over and over. Every time I babysat, we went to that restaurant. We knew the owner of the restaurant. That's the memory I have, not the sidewalk. I also have a question. What's the return on investment? We invest $10 million in the sidewalk, like they did maybe over at Tennyson. When do we see the return on that in our city, and what return do we actually see? I would advocate that City Council please put this vote on hold tonight until the citizens have a chance to tell you how to spend our money.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Tara Jan, T-A-R-A-J-A-H-N. I live at 3620 High Court. I think I've told you all plenty of times, but my partner and I moved here in 2009, so just about 5 years now. And then since then, we've doubled down, and my mom now lives here in District 2, and so she's actually bummed that she cannot be here tonight. She's in Michigan, and I'm working very hard on trying to get my cousin and the family of 4 to move up here. Now that there's been the Westward article of how Wheat Ridge is competitor to Park Hill and Wash Park, actually. So. For families who are looking in those communities. So it's actually a really great movement of our community moving up in the ranks compared to the other suburbs around Denver. since I moved here, again, I think a few other residents have spoken about the level of, the number of opportunities for residents to become involved. And again, I thank you very much for that. I lived 3 years in Denver and also 6 years in Vermont. And it wasn't until I moved to Wheat Ridge that I was actually able to have a voice in my local community and be able to not only approach community representatives, but also have the opportunity to organize events. And so from the beginning of this project, as Janice had said, I moved similar reason for her as being able to read the neighborhood stabilization and revitalization and also the comprehensive plan that was passed in 2010. And so those were the reasons that created this space for us to be able to have conversations like this. And since being able to see that start of this project all the way to now, it's been a great process of community involvement. I've gotten to meet and build relationships with a lot of other community members and representatives. So thank you for all of that due diligence on your part. I also, as a board member of Wheat Ridge 2020 and as a community organizer, have had the opportunity to organize for the past 4 years plenty of community events, ranging from the cruiser crawls and the yogas in the park, all the way to Parking Day, which we did last fall to demonstrate the importance of community space. And countless opportunities to meet members of our community, members of Arvada, Lakewood, Golden, and even the Tech Center. We had 5 people from the Tech Center come up to our cruiser crawl last month, all excited to see the movement on our 38th Avenue. And I think that as we talk about our legacy and what we're able to accomplish, it's not just a sidewalk and it's not just, $10 million. It's we're investing in a culture of connection and a culture of community, and I think that that's what's really important, especially as we read articles. The Jefferson County School District just published a thing saying high school students are worried that their peers are not leaving their houses enough. And I think the more that we invest in safe, inclusive spaces out in our communities, the more we have opportunities to connect with one another, opportunities we have to take care of our senior residents and our young families that are moving in here. And I think it's a great legacy for us to be able to lead the way on. And just in logistically reaction to some of the other comments, I think that when we talk about traffic increases, we also have to take into consideration that as we have a change in demographics of a new growth of younger people who are driving more. I personally made 3 to 6 trips on 38th Avenue and 29th Avenue this weekend. And so some of those correlations of increases in traffic counts are probably due to that. So unless we want to stop residents buying new houses, then we probably should just be cognizant of these other indications. And that's all. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
My name is Margie Seifer, S-E-Y-F-E-R, 3405 Ward Road. I want to thank the council for what has happened so far with West 38th Avenue. I love the energy, all the families that come there and the celebrations that go on. It's just been an amazing transition. My husband and I have been residents of Wheat Ridge for 40 years. We moved from what is now called West Highlands. We moved to West Wheat Ridge. Applewood Village was the place to go, was the place to live. Color Strand Elementary had an A+ rating, and we were really happy. And then about 20 years into being residents here, there was a group that really wanted this city to shut down. They wanted no new business. We were closed for business. In fact, our city had a reputation of making it so difficult for new businesses to come here that a lot of businesses did. They just threw up their hands and went someplace else. Now look what's happened. It's an amazing thing that we have going on. If we don't do this now, and by the way, that's probably why we're in trouble, is because we should have started this process a long time ago. And you know what would have been said a long time ago? Oh, this is such an expensive project. Where are we going to get money? And so we keep putting it off and putting it off. We need to move this city forward and not slide back. And I fear that if we don't move forward, that we will just become blighted, because we were blighted 20 years ago. And now it's so wonderful. And so, when people say, where do you live? I want to say with pride that I live in Wheat Ridge, and I don't want to have the image in the back of my head that we are sort of a blighted little stepchild in between Golden and Highlands. We can make it happen. We'll find the money. We'll find the way. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, or good evening. Judy Hammer, 3230 Newland Street. I've lived in Wheat Ridge since 2001. Since this road diet on 38th Avenue, I avoid that street. It does not, I don't think closing 2 lanes on a thoroughfare draws customers. What draws customers is businesses that people want to shop at. So I ask that we take this forward to the ballot for voters to consider. Thank you.
Thanks, Judy.
My name is Lloyd Levy. I live at 3275 Up Street. And I wrote to the council, and I'd like to read that letter into the record now, please. I personally support investment in the envisioned public improvements that would create a Main Street environment on 38th Avenue from Upham to Marshall. I want to see it done well, done smart, and done with all deliberate speed. And by that, I mean sooner and not later. I would support any action this council may take to make the public investment happen to the fullest extent possible. I would oppose action by council that would stack the decks against it or table it indefinitely. So, with reference to the options in the staff report, I would oppose options 2, 3, and 4. I oppose options 2 and 3 because they refer the project just to the voters of districts 1 and 2. I think a project of citywide importance, if referred, should be voted on by all 4 city council districts. I oppose option 4 because it is a do-nothing option. This project is something really worth doing. I personally would not immediately be deterred by the cost estimates or by any particular rendering of the project that we've seen so far, nor would I be deterred by the opposition of some interests for one reason or another. I would expect the council to be looking for ways to bring more and more voters into the coalition supporting this project by working the problem among themselves, with staff, with consultants as needed, and finally with the constituencies and other stakeholders. In the end, though, choices must be made and the project should go forward. I see this project as a priority because it would potentially create a better environment for the growth of much needed business and social vitality. I see it as enhancing the ability of the city to take on other important tasks and projects in the long run, not as crowding out other things out. I see it as greatly enhancing the image of the city with visitors, the depth of the market available to businesses in the area, and the quality of life the city offers to residents. Finally, I hope to see the City Council show commitment tonight to pursuing this project with focus and determination until it is built and prospering. That's what it will take to achieve the vision we set out for ourselves and for the Main Street sub-district of 38th Avenue. We want this place to be, and I'm quoting here from the 38th Avenue Corridor Plan, a source of community pride and a primary destination for city residents and visitors. In the year 2030, people of all ages and abilities live, work, learn, shop, and play along 38th Avenue. Thank you.
Thank you. There must be more. Oh, we have another one. Hi, Tom.
My name is Tom Yang, and I'm heavily invested in Wheat Ridge. I own the office building on 6990 West 38th Avenue. I also own the property of the restaurant, the office. And, you know, because I really support 38th Avenue, because probably 38th Avenue, my office building is 100% full. So office doing a pretty good job there. And just recently, the owner of the restaurant and myself invested almost $50,000 to do the awning for the restaurant. And that was a huge investment for us. And I made a decision to go ahead and spend the money there to bring probably the best looking awning in Wheat Ridge. Maybe in Denver. Maybe in Denver. So I don't know if you can see another one as nice as we got there. We got a fireplace there. So I fully support this. I hope the members will vote this go forward. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Monica Duran. I live at 2980 Upham Street. It's important to remember that all of us feel very passionate about revitalizing 38th Avenue, all in our own way. The impact of this decision will be felt among businesses, schools, and our community for generations to come. That's why I ask Council to support regarding putting this on the November ballot for all districts, 1, 2, 3, and 4. Listening to the voters will ensure that a fair and balanced approach was taken in making this decision. I call that keeping our word as elected officials and representing all the citizens in our community. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, Mike Stites, 11885 West 35th Avenue. Before I start, I'd like to say that, you know, nobody wants better redevelopment than we do on 38th Avenue. But I don't know of any business that cannot survive without traffic. Any business, regardless of who you are, you have to have traffic. And I've often said, you know, I've been up here before and talked about it, that I think that everything could be achieved by leaving it the way that it is. You know, proper lighting, you know, particular things like that. And I think we can achieve everything that we want to achieve. But with that being said, I'd like to tell you about possibly a problem. Back in the late 60s and early 70s, when all these cities became cities, Jack Prose, who was with the Wheat Ridge Fire Department for years and worked for the city for years, was our original disaster coordinator. And he worked with Lakewood, he worked with Arvada, he worked with Golden, he worked with Denver. They all worked together on a disaster plan for this area in case there was a disaster. At that time, and which still is true federally, stately, Lutheran Hospital is declared a federal disaster hospital. 38th Avenue was declared a disaster road. And in case of evacuation, you have to have a disaster plan. And the whole time I was on council for 10 years, I never saw a disaster plan, but I would presume that 38th Avenue, if we do have a disaster plan, is the disaster road to get to Lutheran. Now, it would depend upon what area, north, south, east, or west, whatever the disaster is coming. But I would presume that 38th Avenue still is on the disaster plan for a disaster road. Now, at 35 feet, will that handle people trying to evacuate or emergencies getting to Lutheran Hospital? I don't know. That worries me. And that was brought up right off the bat in our initial conversations. And boy, it was dumped like a hot potato because nobody wanted that. And I'll bet you if the city or whomever, and they might even know Jack Prose is since deceased, that in his records you will find that 38th Avenue was declared and still is a disaster road. Once again, are we putting the citizens of Wheat Ridge in harm's way? The fire department will tell you, and they do have data to back up, their response times going east are slower and have been slower since the road diet was installed. Are we putting the citizens in Wheat Ridge in harm's way? It's something you're going to have to find out. And then I think the big problem that the city's going to have, you have a 60-foot right-of-way out there. You're going to cut it down to 35 feet. Is that going to make the city responsible for every single accident that happens out there? Is the city going to be paying one heck of an outlay of cash for every accident because you took a street 60 feet to 35? But it's something to think about. But I would strongly suggest that you take this to a vote of the people. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have, oh, yes, we do. Hiding back there, Roger.
My name is Roger Lasher, Loecher, and I'm a property owner on 38th. I'm also a resident of Wheat Ridge, Colorado. When I was growing up, my mother, lacking an 8th grade education or higher, said at the dinner table one day, she said, you know, it's not your dinner plate that's important. It's what you have on the plate. I kind of feel the same way about 38th Avenue. 38th Avenue Street's not important. It's what we have behind the street. You people want to spend $10 million on the street, and we have no discussion of what's going to happen behind the street, okay? If my numbers are right, and I think they are, if we take $10 million, 15 years at 4%, do you realize the first payment on that $10 million is $60,600? $33,000 of that will go to interest. That's for the next 180 months, okay? Where's that money going to come from? I don't see Steve Art here tonight, but I'm sure he's got the figures that say we're going to generate new money to cover that $60,600, because we shouldn't be taking it from any other part of the city, because if we do, we're stealing from those merchants who are supporting the rest of the city. Okay? A lot can be said. If you want to make 38th a street, a main street, make it a main street, but make it behind the street we already have. I would guess the people that are out here that are opposed to 38th project that you got going here, not opposed to the street. Are they? Hell yes they are. They're opposed to the street. They want their street back. Put your $10 million behind the street. Bring businesses in. Make it possible. And when Margie said, you know, the city is open for business, I don't believe it is, okay? It is still closed for business. Wheat Ridge is still harder to do business than a lot of other cities. Why are people coming to Wheat Ridge? Look at the economics on the other side of Sheridan. Find out how much that property sells for. Find out how much it rents for. And you'll see why they want to come to Wheat Ridge. It's dollars and cents. It's economics. Spend that $10 million and invite everybody to come to 38th. And what will we do when they get here? We're not going to narrow the street up. We need the street to bring the people. If we cut the street down from, we have roughly 18,000 people, cut it down to 9,000 people, we're missing half the customers in town. One thing, you know, kind of end it all up here. I hope if you do go ahead, and I'm sure that you're going to do it anyway, you're not going to listen to the people. I hope you have enough money in your budget to have a big bronze plaque put on the street someplace. I want everybody who voted yes, put their name on it. Everybody who votes and thinks it's a good deal, put your name on it. Because when that folly goes to heck, I don't want anybody saying, I didn't have nothing to do with it. And that's what's going to happen when it goes to pieces, and I will guarantee it will. More than you will guarantee that it'll work, okay? Want their name on the street, so my kids and my grandkids will say, who did that? Who screwed that up? There's the names, okay? Thanks for your time.
That was kind of funny. Oh, we do have another speaker. Hi, Don.
My name is Don Iafanti. I live at 3830 Robb Street. The name's spelled E-A-F-A-N-T-I. Own a business on 38th Avenue, and I appreciate everybody here has a personal axe to grind tonight. I don't. I've been there for many years, and I've observed the street ever since they narrowed it, and it is not safe. My idea of safety, I have documented 22 accidents on the street, and there's twice that many that don't get it documented. I've seen cars bump into the flower boxes and pull out and drive away because they're afraid they'll be arrested if the police come. In my estimation, we're hiding our head in the sand. We're not looking at safety. We have a street from 38th and Kipling to Youngfield that don't have curb, gutter, sidewalk, and there's a middle school and 2 elementary schools there. Kids walk in the street. Each day when I go home, I walk home, I see people in wheelchairs in the street. Yet we're concerned with aesthetics. I love aesthetics. Safety comes first, though. Thank you for attention.
Thank you. Oh, we have one more.
My name
is Patrick Stanley, 4055 Ammon Street. I'd just like to express my support for adopting the street section proposed. I think for me, part of this project is about setting up the environment that businesses and the community will want to go to, business will want to locate to, and our citizens will want to experience. I think it would be a shame actually if we stopped at this point and the businesses who actually have invested into this street based on I think some of the promise that could happen here in the future, I think that would be unfortunate if we kind of hung them out to dry. Part of the reason when we moved to Wheat Ridge about 4 years ago was because of some of the promise that we saw with projects like this 38th street improvements, and we're excited about it, and we still are, and we hope it moves forward. Thank you.
Thank you. That staff will bring it to our attention. Anyone else that needs to speak or wants to? Nope. Protest? Okay.
Madam Mayor?
Yeah, Mr. DiTullio.
Question for staff. Was there a legal protest from the 20% of the adjacent property owners or not?
I think the city clerk has that information.
Today we received a protest from an adequate number of property owners affected by the road width, and therefore it will require per the charter, it will require a supermajority to pass this.
Did everybody understand that?
I was just going to ask, could you please go over what entails the protest?
Sure, I can do that.
Right.
Like,
Mr. Dahl, please.
the city has a charter provision 5.20 street width designation. It goes on for a ways, but the important thing to remember for tonight, it's really sort of a two-stage process, but the council is required, as you have just done, to have a public hearing anytime you set a street width, and that would be to make a street wider or narrower. It's setting the street width. That's what this hearing was about. It was properly noticed. There's notice requirements. The charter provision requires as well, or provides, that if a protest signed by the requisite number of property owners adjacent to the street on either side is filed before the conclusion of the public hearing, then that triggers a supermajority requirement that applies to any approval you would grant. And so you have a resolution in front of you because the protest was filed, and it's a matter of checking the signers of the protest against the property records, and staff was thankfully the protest was filed, and we appreciate it earlier this afternoon, so that gave the staff a chance to go through the property records and determine that the requirements had been satisfied under the charter to make it a valid protest. Once that is true and that protest is filed before the conclusion of the public hearing in the language of the charter, and that's been done because it was filed this afternoon. Now it's been made a part of the record by the city clerk. Because of that, now the voting requirement is elevated from a majority of a quorum to 3/4. So instead of 5 votes to approve a resolution approving the street width, it's 6 votes. And that would apply whether or not and I realize there's a range of motions here, options, but that would apply whether or not the motion also includes sending a question to the ballot. Because let's remember, the charter says that if you get a protest, you can't approve a street width unless it's with 6 votes. The fact that you approve it conditionally or approve it and send it to the voters is still an approval of a street width, despite the fact you might be postponing its effective date. So I'm telling you that the 6-vote rule applies for any approval of a street width on 38th Avenue tonight.
So the bottom line, and do we get to see a copy of the protest, please? The bottom line for those who are listening here and at home, because there is a legal protest, the council, whichever way they vote or whatever nomination comes forth that we vote upon, or they vote upon, excuse me, will require a majority, what's called a supermajority. So 6 people are required to vote one direction or another in order to.
This is the one copy that I have. I can make copies for all of you and put them in your boxes if you want. There were 19 properties represented. Some of the properties required the signatures of like 2 owners, like a husband and wife, or two people, and not all of those 19 properties had signatures of all of the required owners of the property, but there were enough that it meets the percentage requirements, so it's adequate as a legal protest to trigger that requirement for 6 votes. And these the property amounts were verified by folks up in the planning department. So it's the people that have been working on this project have verified that this is an adequate to be a legal protest.
Mr. Fitzgerald.
I have a
Is it
question
20
for
or
City
10?
Clerk. Have you vetted the names on this list as to whether or not they're registered voters and meet the criteria?
It's the property owners and the Lauren and Ken, those folks upstairs, have all the documentation from the county of who's the owner and of each of the properties. So I would trust their
That's correct.
the
They
information
don't
from
need
the
to be registered
county.
Voters, they just have to be the property owner.
Yeah, it's a 2-stage, as I mentioned, it was 2-stage. At this stage, to file a protest, protests are signed by property owners. If in fact the street width designation is approved, there is a further option, it's not required, but further option in the charter, that if the citizenry doesn't approve of that and wants to trigger a vote, then there is a petition process which is signed by registered electors. But we're not at that stage. Don't know if we'll get there. It's really up to citizens to choose to file that or not. But at this stage, the persons that sign the protest are property owners, whether or not they're registered electors under the charter.
So someone who lives outside the city could be making the decision about this street?
Under the charter, that's right. The charter says that it's signatures of property owners, and the charter applies to your actions tonight.
There was a distance requirement. Can you give us that so that everyone is aware of that?
Sure. I mean, it gets more detailed. I mean, the main thing for you to hear is that we've fully reviewed the petition. It satisfies the requirements, but the requirements are in the alternative. You either have the protest signed by 20% of the property owners immediately adjacent or contiguous to the street, or 10% of the volume of property within 300 feet of either side of the street. It almost requires, frankly, a diagram and a calculator to articulate that, but I'm telling you that we have gone through that effort, and the staff's gone through that effort, and have determined that the requisite signatures have been obtained and the protest is a valid one.
Mr. Pond.
Since we're on the topic, can you more specifically define the next phase and the criteria? You started in on the further phase and registered voters and a petition, but can you give more of the metrics required in that case?
Sure. There's a 45-day period that's triggered after a favorable vote by the city council on a street width designation. If it's an unfavorable vote and you don't approve a street width designation, there's nothing to petition. But if you do and there's a favorable vote, then that triggers a 45-day period during which registered electors may mount a petition signed by 5% of the registered electors just of the city council districts adjacent to the street. So in this case, it would be of the city council districts 1 and 2, and it would be all of the registered electors in those districts, despite the fact that the street does not extend throughout that whole district. Doesn't matter. This street width touches districts 1 and 2. So within 45 days of your approval of a street width, a petition can be filed as long as it's got 5% of the registered electors in both of those districts. Then that triggers an election, special election, held within 30 days nor more than 180 days after the city council receives the petition, determines it valid, and sets a notice. Yeah.
Further questions of the council? Mr. Urban?
Thank you. With respect to the legal protest, should the city council choose this evening to place this on the ballot, what impact does that have on the legal protest of the electorate, that 5% you spoke of?
It'd be the petition of the electorate. We're at protest level now. We'd be at petition, and both start with P.
Okay.
Later. To the extent the city council were to refer it to the voters, say a citywide election, I would tell you that the charter still applies. So conceivably, the charter doesn't say, but if the council also refers it in some way, the citizens can't mount a petition. It doesn't say that, and you have to read it as written. So if it were referred to the entire city electorate, you could also have, I suppose, if people wanted to sign a petition, to have it voted on just in districts 1 and 2, and that petition were put together and was deemed valid, then there would have to be an election on that particular petition. There's a separate part of the charter that says if 2 questions are on the ballot at the same time, the one that gets the most votes wins. Now we're really doing a triple what if, and at some point I'm going to stop guessing at sort of how that might play out until 2 of the what ifs happen, and then I'm a little more confident about what to do with the third one. But I can at least tell you that if you refer it to the electorate, that does not cut off the rights of citizens in districts 1 and 2 to mount a petition for a vote in those 2 districts. Whether they'd want to politically, that's outside of my pay grade.
Further questions?
I guess I have one last question. In the study sessions in which the design work was reviewed by council, I brought up at several points what was the plan to pay for this. If we set this designation, what's the plan to pay for these improvements, the 9.3 that we've discussed, as far as the price tag for all this work? Where does that come from?
Only one for you.
Yes, that's kind of off question. We're really kind of drilling in on the street with designation is our direction here, but please feel free to answer that. Yeah, please.
Christy.
I'm happy to chime in and invite other folks too as well. I mean, I think this is something we discussed in our retreat. I think it's something that we've discussed in study sessions. I think a lot of it we were waiting for the dollar amounts, but I do think a lot of it we were also hoping on some of, the city revenues. We were also looking forward to another possible ballot initiative that would not completely, a portion of that ballot initiative is for 38th, and that could be revitalization in general. So I guess I would say that we've discussed that as a council. I think regardless, I think even everyone in this room, regardless if you're okay with the street width or not okay with the street width, recognizes that there needs to also be revitalization, which also is going to be dollars spent. And I think as a council, we've discussed this numerous times, that's also the importance of some of the other efforts that we're looking into as far as a ballot measure. So I don't think it's something that hasn't been discussed. And again, I would say regardless if we keep the street the way it is or we go back to how it was, revitalization still needs to be taking place in that area, which will also require city revenues. So I don't know if that kind of answered some of your questions, but I think as a council, we have discussed it to some impact. I mean, I don't know that we've gone exactly to say this bond, this dollar, this is how we're getting it, but I think those are things that are a part of our retreat and our discussions.
Well, I just think that if we're going to ask I hadn't yielded yet. My question is that if we're going to ask the voters to approve this, we need to be cognizant of the costs involved and how that's going to be accomplished. And that should be part of the question, because to suggest to voters that we're just going to change the street width and there's no cost associated with that is not logical. There is a cost associated with changing the street width. And that cost, I think, should be discussed prior to voting on the street width designation. It just seems like we're changing the street width designation or the street width without any indication of how are we going to pay for that. So we changed the street width designation, but we don't have any money to actually change that. So now we have a street that doesn't have the proper street width designation. So if it tries to go back, there's no way to do that. To me, we need to put it to the vote of the people and give them a clear path of how that's going to be paid for, so they know what that is. If we refer it to the voters without a plan to pay for it, then there's the implied idea that we have somehow got it covered, and we don't. We don't have any money allocated for this project yet. We're moving forward as though we do.
Mr. Pond.
To be specific, to this question, and which is the one that we're talking about, and then to be responsive to what you're saying, and I could be corrected. I'm willing to be corrected here, because I'm going to make a statement that I believe to be correct, which is that the action of redesignating the street width is one that we have to do by charter, and in and of itself, that action has no costs. It doesn't. It's a legal action that is required. So it is just one step in many that we have taken as we proceed to look at how we're going to change this street. But it's not actually changing the street, and it's not actually the inherently reflective of the cost. It's basically saying, would you allow a different width, which you have to vote on based on the charter, and that's it. Now, I guess my question would be, if you said yes, we are willing to redesignate the width, and then we did nothing else, what does that mean?
It would mean that you did not find in one way or another the funding to carry the project forward.
So again,
so nothing would change on the ground.
Nothing would change on the ground. So again, in and of itself, this question is not about cost.
Okay, actually, we're still in the middle of an open hearing, and I need to close that, and then I would like a motion, and then we can have a second and then a discussion regarding that motion. So I'm going to now close the meeting. If there's no questions of anybody who was testified, I'm going to assume that. Yeah, you're fine. Then I'm going to close the public hearing, and now the floor is open to a motion.
Okay, just to lighten things, it's almost like I need a drum roll or something. Okay, so, wow. Well, based off of the feedback today, I think that this is the right move. So I move to approve resolution number 39-2014, a resolution establishing a street width for 38th Avenue from Upham Street to Marshall Street in accordance with Phase 2 design plans accepted by reviewed by the City Council on June 16th. See, I listened. June 16th, 2014, and I further move that Section 2 of the resolution be amended to read in its entirety as follows. Section 2, effective date, ballot question submitted. This resolution shall not become effective until unless and until approval of a ballot question by the registered electors of the city of Wheat Ridge at the November 4th, 2014 election, said question to be submitted as referred question pursuant to Charter Section 6.3.
May I have a second?
Second.
Who seconded? Mr. DiTullio seconded. And now the floor is open for discussion.
Can I?
And you would like to speak to the motion?
Thank you. So I'd like to just speak to the motion a bit, as I think most everyone either has received calls from me or calls from me through others. And I just want to thank everybody for the discussions. And I think this was a difficult situation because we have street width and flow line changes within the city in a lot of different areas that don't require a vote, or well, they would require a vote, but there's never been a legal protest. So I think that does bring an awareness to all of us and as city council that there is some question out there by our community. I think most folks here said, you know, if you're gonna, you know, if we're gonna do the vote, it should be the vote of the people. You know, the entire city of Wheat Ridge is gonna be affected by this, either by assisting to fund it or also as if it's an environment that you're gonna choose to drive through, use, all of the above. And so it took some time, and I think that as a council, I think, and I thank everyone for the discussions, and I think in summary, we heard you, we're doing as requested, and I think we move forward.
Further discussion? Mr. Fitzgerald.
Just to reiterate what Christy said, I think this is a win-win for everybody. Those who want it to go before the people are going to get it before the people. And in the meantime, we're going to move forward. So I think everybody wins.
Mr. DiTullio, did I hear you? No. Mr. Starker?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I first would like to thank all of the people who came tonight and obviously had a lot of passion and care and concern with the decisions and the things that we do in our city. I think there's a lot of thoughtful thinking out there and a lot of good views on where we should go. I think this is a reasonable decision. I intend to support the motion, and I think we're going to be able to let the citizens opine on this question, which we've heard before, and I would challenge all of my fellow councilors to vote in favor and that we make this a unanimous motion. Thank you.
Did you want to speak, Mr. DiTullio?
So I wanted to express my, I'm pleased that we're going to go citywide on this, and here's the reason why. Back in a few years ago, when there was a big fight on 38th Avenue from Cody to Kipling, when there was a discussion between 36 feet and 44 feet, the council referred that question on the ballot, and the citizens citywide decided that. What came out of that vote was a 36-foot wide street from Cody to Kipling with 3 lanes, and this charter amendment was approved by the voters shortly after that because of the rancor. It was a campaign, but I don't think that any neighbors were mad at each other because one had yes on 36 feet and some had no on 44 feet or no on 36 feet. I think that this will silence the critics. It'll silence who's ever for it or against it, pass or fail. So I think that because it's a large public works project, and we have taken large public works projects to the voters before, the rec center, the expansion of this building. We didn't do the streetscape on 38th Avenue between Sheridan and Harlan because that was not changing the width of the street, but we did $2.5 million worth of road work, and those were all improvements on 38th Avenue within the last 20 years, 15 years. So I would take offense if anybody says we haven't done anything in the last 20 years to the city of Wheat Ridge to make it better. But I think this will, going forward, everybody will have their say, and if it passes, great. If it doesn't, you have to look at Plan B. But I think the council has heard both sides. I've heard both sides for 2.5, 3 years. I think that this is a good win-win, and I've talked about win-wins in the past. So This will be a citywide vote. I think if it was just districts 1 and 2, that would be unfair because everybody pays taxes and everybody drives the street. So if it's going to go to a vote, it should go citywide, not just districts 1 and 2. So I appreciate the motion and I seconded it. Now hopefully this will pass by council.
Any other questions or comments from members of the council? Mr. Pond?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I also want to thank everyone for coming tonight. We don't have a full chamber every week, and although it looks daunting from this side, it's great. It's great to I counted 25 people who got up and spoke on this topic, and I think that's reflective, obviously, of the importance of it. I will support this motion, and however, I will say that there's a few things that are cautionary in my mind, and I want to say them, and I want to challenge some people, including ourselves. One of my fears is that there's been comments about whether or not the design and the vetting of options, as well as listening to stakeholders, has been accomplished. I believe, since I've sat and participated in many of those things, I believe that is the case. But I know that from even comments tonight that not everyone believes that. I challenge everyone to listen to some of the folks tonight who referred to where the resources are in the history of this process, the history of the conversation and the design, and to reach out. And if you can't find it in the website, I certainly hope that you reach out to us. But I will say that this is referring to a width designation. That's really what it is. It's kind of going back to what I said before. This is not really a ballot that is intended to vote on design. I wouldn't be for that, because I think that's too nuanced and too complicated to put out to a vote of the people. We're not going to have a ballot question with a picture on it. So, I think we need to be careful, and that means I think that I challenge everyone again, including ourselves, and maybe that's for me personally, to get out, communicate, talk about this, talk about the design, talk about the importance to the community, and let's make sure we're level-headed when we get to that point.
I just had a quick technical question on the motion that was made by Councilmember Davis. There was a section in the packet that talked about the different widths. It isn't highlighted. Do we need to include that in the motion, or is that being excluded on purpose or by accident?
So my understanding is that as a council, we still will approve the ballot language, so we could do that at that time.
Okay, thank you.
Are we ready for the vote? Do I get to hold this out here for a long while? All right, please, it's been moved and seconded that as Ms. Davis has read, I hope that's clear to everybody what we have to accomplish tonight, which is that it will take 6 votes in order to approve or disapprove the motion because of the protest, right? So please go ahead and poll the council.
What, a recess?
Great. Okay.
Recess?
Do we want to move for a recess?
Recess.
You would have to move. Let's have a 10-minute break. Everybody has to go to the bathroom. Christie. We gotta do something to her. All right. Comfy?
It's just a little hot in here.
Trying to kick back.
I'm just going on.
Okay, let's reconvene, please, starting with item number 4, which is to be read by Item 3, excuse me, Mr. Fitzgerald.
Okay, item number 3, Council Bill number 09-214, an ordinance approving the rezoning of property located at 7671 West 32nd Avenue and 3299 Wadsworth from residential R2 to planned residential development and for approval of an outline development plan. This property rezoning area includes 2 parcels totaling approximately 3.48 acres. Currently, the subject property contains abandoned houses. The purpose of the zone change request is to allow for the construction of single-family neighborhood with 20 small lots. The zone change and ODP approval is the first step in the process for approval of future development on the site. The second step of the process is the specific development plan and plat, which will be subject to planning commission and/or city approval.
This is first reading, so go ahead and
Uh, Okay. I move to approve Council Bill 09-214, an ordinance approving the rezoning of property located at 7671 West 32nd Avenue and 3299 Wadsworth Boulevard from residential R2 to planned residential development, PRD, and for approval of an outline development plan on first reading, ordered published, public hearing set for Monday, August 11th, 2014 at 7 p.m. in City Council chambers, and that it take effect 15 days after final publication.
Madam Mayor,
Second.
I'd like to second that, please.
we have 2 seconds. Mr. Pond has seconded as well as,
Well, he
got the
was
last
first.
one. You got the.
he got the other one.
It's true, I did get the other one. I'll let
Mr. Pond.
I'll let
Mr. Starker has done the seconding. You've got to keep these seconds fair. The clerk is looking at me with, Mr. Starker, okay, good. Please poll the council. Mr. Starker. Moving on to item number 4, and Mr. Starker will read that.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and please introduce item number 4. This is a resolution number 40-2014, a resolution amending the fiscal year 2014 capital investment program budget to reflect the approval of a supplemental budget appropriation in the amount of $750,000 for the purpose of retaining professional services for the design of construction plans for the proposed 38th Avenue improvements. At issue, final conceptual design for the West 38th Avenue streetscape project has been completed and approved by the City Council. You know, let's start again. Final conceptual design for the West 38th Avenue streetscape project has been completed and reviewed by the City Council. The final step in moving the project forward before construction is retaining professional services for survey and design work to begin the process of developing construction plans. Should the City Council adopt a revised street width for the project on July 14th, construction must commence within 1 year as required by City Code. As a result, a very tight and aggressive schedule would need to be followed in order to meet that timeline, and survey and design work would need to begin as soon as possible. Staff has developed a proposed schedule of work, a proposed scope of work and schedule as part of the request for qualifications, the RFQ, to solicit proposals for professional services from qualified consultants. a supplementary budget appropriation in the amount of $750,000 is required before staff can continue the RFQ. Staff will follow through with evaluations, interviews, contract negotiations, and a recommendation to council on October 13th, 2014.
Do we have any reports from staff on this one?
We don't, only if you have questions.
Okay. Council questions of staff. Mr. DiTullio.
This is more of a technical question for the city attorney or Mr. Goff. Since the motion earlier tonight set the resolution to the ballot in November for the street width approval, and we have to build within a year once that's been done, is this premature now? Because basically, was the resolution approved tonight, or are we going to wait till the voters approve it or not in November? So are we doing this too early? Just a technical question.
Well, the two actions, spending money on design and whether the street width itself is approved, are independent. They're obviously related, but they're not legally dependent upon one another.
It's actual construction that we're talking about within the year, right?
That's right. Yeah, I mean,
Okay.
yeah. I'm sorry, I didn't understand your question. Yeah,
Okay.
it's the yeah.
I get you. Thanks.
Ms. Davis had a question here.
So one of my questions is I know this kind of comes, I question, we're going to go and spend this money when we're not certain how the ballot question will go. But then after further clarification, my understanding is, this is for a budget appropriation. The initial step will be that we actually send RFQ out, which will take some time, that we get several bids from several different developers or surveyors or civil engineers or all the above to say, we can do this project for this amount, we can do this project, and then the public works groups kind of decide who they think they work the best with, who has the best reputation, et cetera. And then there would be another final approval to vote to approve whichever company that's been recommended. With that in mind, I think that date was October 16th or something like that. We could always, as a council, decide, let's do it, say election day is November 4th. We could say, let's do it November 5th, if there were concerns of the dollars being spent.
Correct. You could set that date to the first regular council meeting after the election.
So
to approve the
So in the Reader Digest version is, we're just really requesting that they go out and get bids from folks to see, to the developers to look and review the project. We're not necessarily paying that money today.
Correct, and our purchasing policies require that we have the monies appropriated before we put out any RFP process. But if we don't award depending on what happens at the election in November, we can decide if the contract is awarded. Obviously, if there's no funds to do the project, you may not want to award the contract at this point. So we just won't spend those funds.
Thanks. I just wanted to make sure we had that clarification so folks didn't just think we were writing a $750,000 check today.
So this is like a placemaker for the funds.
Correct.
Okay. Mr.
The
Urban.
as a contractor or a design firm that's bidding on this work with the knowledge that the project may not go forward or the council may not approve further funding of it, to me seems as though it's a similar situation where we're putting forth a project without with the possibility that the funding may not remain there, but based on the vote of the people, we don't know what's going to happen. So why would we ask a design firm to spend time to put together a proposal when there's an uncertainty as to the future of the project?
It's a risk for any firm that wants to bid on it, but it'll be part of the RFQ that is sent out, and we'll be very transparent about it so that they know there's a risk in applying for any bids if you're going to get it anyway. So we'll make that information very clear.
Any further questions? May I have the motion?
Yes, ma'am. Madam Mayor, I move to approve resolution number 40-2014, a resolution amending the fiscal year 2014 capital investment program budget to reflect the approval of a supplemental budget appropriation in the amount of $750,000 for the purpose of retaining professional services for the design of construction plans for the proposed 38th Avenue streetscape improvements.
Second. Second.
Oh, man.
Did you see the tear over here?
I even had my mic off.
We've got this wired in District 1.
It's been moved and seconded to approve item number 5.
Showboats.
Please poll the council.
Wait, is there a discussion?
Wait. Discussion, I didn't think there was any more discussion. Discussion, please, on this item, number 5.
I guess I'll go first.
Yeah.
I just don't see how we are appropriating $750,000 for a project that we just asked the voters to tell us how to proceed on. That, to me, is short-circuiting the process. If we want the voters to make this decision, putting $750,000 towards this project says, I don't know what it says. I can't even wrap my head around it. Why would we be putting $750,000 into a project that we may not come to fruition on until after November? Why not let this resolution be presented and passed after the election? Why do it now?
Patrick, do you want to answer that for us?
Yeah, I mean, the primary reason is because of the charter requirement that once the street width designation is set, we have a year to start construction. So it's prudent to have the plans in place to start that construction if it does pass. So as I mentioned, if it doesn't move forward, we won't spend the funds.
So no actual money will be spent?
Correct.
I guess there was another question I had. I just don't see why we wouldn't. I guess my question is, with respect to the effective date of the street width designation, is that the start of the 1 year, or is today the start of the 1 year?
It'd be the effective date.
Actually, it's the hearing. The way Charter 5.20
hearing.
is written, it says within 1 year of the quote hearing.
That is today.
So you don't get the float in between now and November. The year starts running today. I thought about that question, actually spent a little time during the break looking at it to make sure, because I myself thought, well, it's going to be the effective date of the resolution. But as the charter is written, it's within 1 year of the hearing. So the clock's running.
Okay, I would just be cautious against allocating, setting aside, doing anything, and especially to the tune of $750,000 on a project that has not yet been approved by the voters. And in order to recognize the sanctity of the vote that we're going to have, that we need to postpone this until this is passed. To put this out ahead of that is basically telling the voters, we're going ahead with this, and you vote how you want to vote, but we're already allocating $750,000, and this should be pushed until after the election.
Mr. DiTullio.
I understand what Mr. Urban is saying, but I do believe that the policy is we have to have the money allocated to go out for a request for a quote, and we're not going to spend the money. And if we bring this back the day after the election, the plans, if a company doesn't want to bid, they don't have to bid and give a quote. So if November 5th or 6th comes along and the voters approve the ballot question, we will have the plans ready. If they don't approve the ballot question, then that money hasn't been spent. And I don't think it's disingenuous to be prepared either way. And I think we are prepared either way. If the voters approve it, the plan is there, the money's ready to go. If the voters don't approve it, we don't spend the money. So I get what you're saying, Mr. Urban, but I don't see the. I can't go to the voter. I don't think I could go to the voters and say, well, we've done something surreptitious or behind the scenes. I don't think it's that way. I mean, the vote is the vote, and their voters are going to campaign pro and con on that on their own merits. And whether we have a $750 line item budgeted for after the election, I don't think it's going to make any difference. I mean, they're going to look at other things. So I'm okay with it going forward. But I get your concern, but I don't see a problem with it or that we're trying to pull the wool over anybody's eyes.
I wouldn't say that it's a public meeting. We're not being surreptitious about it, but I just think it's a little, it is somewhat backwards that we're allocating money for a project that we just asked the voters to approve or disapprove.
Mr. Pond.
Well, I'll state it in response, even stronger, we have a responsibility to pass this right now because the clock is ticking. If we were not to do that, and then this and the what we just referred to the ballot passed, and then we were going to put 3 months of RFQ down on top of a design, on top of a mobilization or whatever it is that it triggers the start of construction, and we miss that, and or put ourselves, I mean, miss it would be horrible, but put ourselves into a bind where we're having to really jump through hoops and not really go through a thoughtful design process in order to accomplish that, then we're being irresponsible to the citizens in that case. So I think that this unequivocally is our responsibility tonight.
Are we ready for the vote now? Please poll the council.
Motion carries 7-1 with Councilmember Urban voting no.
Moving on to item number 5, Mr. DiTullio.
Thank you. I'd like to introduce item number 5, which is resolution number 42-2014, a resolution approving the Second Amendment to an intergovernmental cooperation agreement between Jefferson County and the city of Wheat Ridge, Colorado, pertaining to community development block grant funding. And a different way of doing this, I would ask the city clerk to read the issue into the record. For item number 5.
Just read it. I'll read it.
It's another way of, they used to do that.
Caught me off guard. What do you, how much of this do you want me to read? All of it?
Dealer's choice.
You could have prepared her.
The city, in partnership with Jefferson County and several adjacent jurisdictions, participates as an urban county in the Federal Community Development Block Grant Program. Smaller cities such as Wheat Ridge, Golden, and Edgewater would not independently be eligible for a direct allocation of funds from the Department of Housing and Urban Development under this program. However, when joining forces with the county's unincorporated areas and these other cities, Wheat Ridge then meets the criteria as an urban county and is eligible to participate in the CDBG program. It provides funding for housing and other infrastructure and amenities that provide benefit to low and moderate income census tracts.
Thank you.
Council discussion or staff input on this? Seeing none, let's go poll the council.
I have to make a motion.
I'm sorry, we need a motion. Of course we need a motion.
Yes, I move to approve resolution number 42-2014, a resolution approving the Second Amendment to an intergovernmental cooperation agreement between Jefferson County and the city of Wheat Ridge pertaining to the community development block grant funding.
May I have a second?
Second.
I don't know who won that.
That would be Zach Urban.
Mr. Urban seconded the motion. Now please poll the council.
Motion carries 8-0.
Okay, item number 6, Genevieve Wooden.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. This is a motion to award a contract to Green Play LLC in the amount of $49,998 for consultant services to update the Parks and Recreation Master Plan per RFP 14-08. At issue, the current Parks and Recreation Master Plan was adopted by City Council in 2006. The scope of the plan update includes documenting completed projects that exist in the current plan, updating maps with new park and trail additions, adding a community survey and needs assessment, and recommending new projects and programs to reflect current and projected trends and needs. Updating the plan will provide a record of existing programs and facilities, as well as providing estimated costs and possible funding sources for recommended projects. 2 consultant firms submitted proposals and team qualifications in response to the RFP. Both firms were chosen for interviews. Green Play LLC was selected based on their community input process and their experience and qualifications being suited to the required scope of work.
Do we have any staff report on that item?
I just wanted to say that I think it's an opportune time to update the master plan. There are a lot of new trends out there in Parks and Recreation, and we've also accomplished quite a bit in the last 8 years that can be documented in the plan. So I'm excited about having a new guide to, a new plan or updated plan to help guide us in the next few years.
Well, no, I don't know. I have I guess a clarification just to make sure. The money that for this project comes out of the open space fund, so it's not like the funding it's not out of our general fund or out of the rec center fund. It's specifically for this kind of a reason, correct?
Correct.
Is a motion in order? I move to award a contract to Greenplay LLC in the amount of $49,998 for consultant services to update the Parks and Recreation Master Plan per RFP 14-08.
Second.
Any discussion? Mr. Stark?
Thank you. I thought I heard Ms. Wooden say $49,998, and it would be $49,989. That could be a friendly amendment.
$49,989.
Any other questions? Will the council, please?
Motion carries 8-0.
Mr. Urban, item number 7.
Thank you. Resolution number 38-2014, a resolution amending the fiscal year 2014 general fund budget to reflect the approval of a supplemental budget appropriation in the amount of $8,000 for the installation of air conditioning in the Channel 8 equipment room. And, right, how about right here? That's a lot.
Is this on purpose tonight, the heat?
Right. Upon approval, the air conditioning will be turned back on. Let's see, should the city council approve a supplemental budget appropriation amount of $8,000 for the installation of air conditioning in the Channel 8 equipment room? That's pretty much it.
That's pretty much it.
I mean, there's not much more to that.
I don't think we have any staff to report on this. Any other questions? All right, yes?
I guess, again, I like, sometimes people get concerned that we use general funds a lot, and this is another one of those ones that doesn't come out of our general funds. It comes out of our PEG fees, which looks like as far as I've been on here, we've always had about $200,000. We never really make any dent into that PEG fees, but we have very limited options as to spend this money, and this will be a great help to keep our equipment lasting longer and cool. So you didn't put the public education grant? Government funds, okay. You think I would know that one, but I've just gotten used to calling them PEG fees. So whenever people pay their Comcast bill, a portion of that bill of citizens in Wheat Ridge comes back to us to maintain our equipment for our Channel 8 TV station, and that includes video equipment and obviously air conditioning. And so it's a great way to use some of the funds that come into us in a very appropriate manner.
I believe we're ready for a motion.
I move to approve Resolution 38-2014, a resolution amending the fiscal year 2014 general fund budget to reflect the approval of a supplemental budget appropriation in the amount of $8,000 for the installation of air conditioning in the Channel 8 equipment room.
And a second?
Second. Thought you were gonna jump on that.
Moved and seconded by Ms. Davis. Please poll the council.
Motion carries 8-0.
Mr. Pond.
Thank you. I haven't heard much movement actually in the equipment room, so we may be too late on that. It's too bad. I'm happy to present resolution number 41-2014, a resolution giving notice and calling for a special municipal election to be held November 4th, 2014. At issue, the city charter calls for a municipal election every odd year to coincide with the elected terms for the offices of mayor, clerk, treasurer, and council. Municipal elections are not held in the city of Wheat Ridge in even number years unless a special election is warranted for a recall, referendum, or initiative set forth by the electorate or the council. In such cases, Charter Section 2.2 gives the council the authority to call a special election. Is the motion in order?
Let's see if do we have anything from staff? No, okay. Then the motion is in order.
Excellent. I move to approve resolution number 41-2014, a resolution giving notice and calling for a special municipal election to be held on November 4th, 2014.
Second.
We're sharing the seconds tonight. Oh, this line where the
Can George second his own motion?
Motion carries 8-0.
Sure, thank you, Mayor. Just want to remind our citizens that we are starting a series of community outreach meetings to get feedback from our citizens on the future of the city. And the first one's this Wednesday, actually, at the Wheat Ridge Recreation Center from 11:30 a.m. to 1 p.m. And the second one is that same evening, Wednesday, July 16th, from 6 to 7:30 p.m. at Colorado Plus on 38th Avenue. For the well, I'll just go ahead and read the other meetings. Saturday, January 19th from 10 to 11:30 a.m. Whoop, what'd I say? Saturday, it's hot. Saturday, July 19th, 10 to 11:30 a.m. at Hayward Park. That's the park outside City Hall here. Wednesday, July 23rd, 6 to 7:30 p.m. at the Active Adult Center. And Thursday, July 24th from 10 to 11:30 a.m. at Anderson Park. This information is also on the city's website. Hope to see you there. Yes, it is.
Nothing tonight, thanks.
I have nothing. Thank you.
Sure. So, Mr. Goff, you'll contact Ms. Voss about the budget and the information that she asked about? Oh, study session.
Yeah, we'll study session that. Yes.
Can you just let us know so we can let her know? Let Christy or Zach know?
Yes.
The other thing was I wanted to thank all the folks who participated in the July 4th neighborhood parade. It was really good. We had about 100 people show up with kids. I want to thank Rachel Hulteen for did face painting. We had about 6 or 7 vehicles. I really wanted to thank the police department and Public Works and the Wheat Ridge Fire Department for all their participation with the barricades, the police, the protection, the safety. And then we ended up at Panorama Park. It was good. And hopefully we can maybe look at doing this at a grander scale next year on 38th Avenue and maybe look at fireworks for the city and talk about it at a study session. But there's a lot of interest in it, keeping it home on the 4th rather than going somewhere else. So maybe have a festival on the green or something that day. So anyway, I want to thank everybody for participating in the parade, and thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'd like to echo my fellow councilor, Mr. DiTullio, in thanking all the citizens who came out for the 4th of July parade. Great sort of pretty spontaneous, reasonably spontaneous activity, and I think there was a lot of goodwill generated in that. I would also like to once again thank the folks who came out tonight to talk to us about their opinions on 38th Avenue. That makes a lot of difference in the way that we are able to generate consensus and reach an ability to provide leadership for this city, great city. And I also want to really suggest and hope that people will take an opportunity to attend some of these listening sessions with respect to the polling that we've had done with our consultants that Mr. Goff spoke about. These are important opportunities for people to come and listen and more importantly to give input about things that are going on in our community. So I would like to do that. So thank you.
I'd like to echo Mr. Starker's comments regarding the public meetings that are coming up. People have mentioned that they weren't a part of the process or that they didn't feel like their voice was heard. These meetings that are coming up are your opportunity to be heard, as well as coming to the dais and speaking. And I really want to thank the citizens that took the time out of their evening today to spend that time with us to voice their opinion, and everybody was respectful and considerate of everybody else's perspective, and I think that is reflective of the character of the citizens we have in Wheat Ridge, as well as of our council members here, and the way that we were able to come together and push forward an issue to be decided on the ballot, and I'm excited about that. And I would also like to thank those in the neighborhood that took the leadership to put together the 4th of July parade. My family and I had an opportunity to participate in that, and it was a great time. So it was a great way to come together as a community that didn't cost hardly anything at all, and was a great chance to come together, and we need to do more of that kind of stuff here, and look forward to that. Thank you.
I just want to echo what was said, so ditto on all of that, and because it's late. And the other thing I do want to do is thank all the city council folks, because the agenda item that I read did take some discussions, and everyone was very open to discussions and different viewpoints, and so I wanted to thank everybody on the dais for that as well.
Thank you. First of all, I wanted to thank all the people tonight that showed up and gave us their input. We really appreciate it. And there were comments tonight that people feel they haven't been heard in the past. So again, the community meetings coming up are your chance to be heard. We can't listen to what you have to say if you don't show up and let us know. So please take the time to either send somebody you know with your opinion or show up yourself. There's different opportunities at different times of the day. They're at lunch, they're in the evening, so we tried to make it possible for people to attend whenever they were able. I'd also like to thank the organizers of the garden tour that happened this last Saturday. It was very successful. There were 8 wonderful gardens. I was on the bicycle tour. We had 15 people tour around on the bicycles. Thank you to the owners of the gardens. They really put themselves out by letting hundreds of people walk through their yard. So thank you to everyone who offered their garden, and thanks to the sponsors, and the lunch at the end was wonderful. So that was another successful event by the garden tour. I wanted to give a quick update. This won't be long. The Wheat Ridge Committee for Educational Excellence has been working on, or is going to be working on, a education summit, the first education summit we'll have here in Wheat Ridge. It's going to be on September 17th at the Wheat Ridge Recreation Center at 6:30 in the evening. The committee's working on bringing together a group of people to let you know how education is right now in Wheat Ridge, and also how we'd like it to be in the future. We've identified 18 schools in the Wheat Ridge area that serve Wheat Ridge residents, and those principals will be there that evening to answer your questions. So September 17th at 6:30 at the Wheat Ridge Recreation Center, and we'll have more information coming up later. Thank you.
Thank you. I'd also like to, ditto to everything, because I don't want to be here until 11 and have to approve an additional time just for our comments. But me and my daughter also enjoyed the garden tour, and it really is amazing what people can do in their backyards, and the amount of talent in the people that live in Wheat Ridge is kind of awe-inspiring. Also, on 4th of July, I was out coming home from fireworks, and I saw several cars at night run through our little flashing yield sign for our crosswalks. There were 3 young children on their bikes waiting patiently to cross the street in the dark, and no one would stop for them until, well, the person next to me stopped as I was pulling up, and I stopped. But we really do need to be aware of those. Those are there for the safety of our citizens, to allow them to cross the street when they can't be seen any other time. Sometimes even with reflective gear on the spokes, it doesn't always help a lot. So let's just try to avoid, hitting the people on our street by following, a very important state law. And then also thank the people who came out tonight, because it's not an easy thing to do, to want to come out here and talk in front of a group of people. So thank you.
I just want to say how happy I am that we took the step we took tonight. And it was sort of a big step. We worked all very hard on it. And I'm really happy to see so many people come out with positive attitudes about Wheat Ridge moving forward, and people who are imagining how great we can be.
Everyone said it all. I love Wheat Ridge. That's it. That's what I got.
That's a bad joke.
Council all working together.